Welcome back to the Classic Life podcast, the deep dives we're doing for Wrath of the Lich King. We're almost done with all of the DPS classes, but today we have one of the most exciting and crazy powerful classes in the entire game right now in Wrath of the Lich King, especially in Phase 1, the Enhanced Shamans. We have some massive big brains, the guys actually pumping at the forefront of Enhanced Shaman on the beta and just kind of in general. Ouro, Jroo, and our boy Rugs. Of course, we have Crix here as well. I'm gonna let him introduce all of the guests. But Crix, how you doing, baby?
Doing good, brother. Just been spamming AV weekend. Almost done with my booming. I got to do a rogue. I think I'm gonna do a rogue next, and then a mage or something. But yeah, just vibing, man. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great. I finished 2 of my 3 Death Knights are fully geared now, so I'm almost ready to start.
Wait,
I'm almost ready to start my enhance. Yeah.
The 4 like extra.
The fourth is like for later.
Okay.
The 4th is like for later. Yeah. What about you guys? Jroo, I'm gonna have you guys go down in a line. Everyone knows Rugs by now. Everyone knows all of you guys by now, but it's you guys' first time on the podcast. So first, Jroo, dude, can you introduce yourself, what you do, what you like about Enhanced Shaman, and like where people can find you, all of that. Just throw it all out there.
Yeah, I'm Jroo, obviously. I'm an Enhanced Shaman. I've been an Enhanced since the start of TBC. It's my first time playing Enhanced was TBC, and it was pretty fun, I thought. And Wrath, it's tough to compare them. I think they're they're kind of similar, but they're kind of different. But I've been enjoying Enhance on the Wrath beta for a long time now. It started out I started out in Rise, if people know that guild. That was a classic guild. Well, I didn't start there, but I started in a dad guild in Nax, went to Rise, went to Overclock in TBC. That's where I kind of I don't know if I built a name for myself really, but that's kind of where I that's where I became pretty good, because there's a lot of good players in that guild and they helped me get a lot better. And then going into Wrath, I'm joining Progress, so that will be pretty fun. So that's pretty much me.
You started in OG Nax, like you didn't play before then. You're like, I'm straight up going.
No, so I was in a dad guild. I was in a dad guild for all the way until mid to late Nax. Then I joined Rise because, when you need 35 Fury Warriors, it's pretty easy to get a spot. So I got pretty lucky, ended up getting into Overclock, played with Overclock for a while, and then now I'm in Progress. So
perfect. And yeah, guys, let me know in the if anyone's volumes are low, I'll adjust them accordingly. Dude, congrats on joining Progress. I think it's gonna be a ton of fun for you. Ouro, my man.
You should move real quick. You should move my camera under yours so you can see more of the game.
Oh,
you can still see the damage done. Who cares about the overall? Just look at the regular damage.
Yeah, boy.
And then if anybody has any questions, you can shoot them down here. Whenever it makes sense to ask them, I'll ask them. I'll ask it too. Feel free to send. I'm staring at chat right now.
Alrighty, Ouro, back to you. Hey, what's up, brother? Yes, I'm so hyped to have you on. Introduce
Ouro.
yourself, yeah.
Name's Ouro. Name's Matt. I raid with Rain. I'm an MMO enthusiast. Been playing MMOs since I was a little kid. Started during ZG patch. Played a Resto Druid because that's all I could get a raid spot on. Wanted to play with a brother or whatever. But in Classic, I played Warrior in Vanilla. And then in TBC, I moved over to Enhancement Shaman. And now in Wrath, I'm playing a ton of Enhance. So just a big Enhance person. Fell in love with it during TBC, but as Jroo was mentioning, it's a lot different. I think like TBC Enhancement's more like a bard, where you're just buffing your party. And in Wrath of the Lich King, you become kind of like the pumper. So it's different, similar, but it's just way more fun if you ask me. Because in TBC, it kind of feels like you're just pressing buttons to increase the DPS of your party, but it goes away from that in Wrath. So I'm excited for it.
Now, like, you're pressing buttons because you're doing the most damage.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels so fresh, dude. I'm so excited. I love that. Rugs, my boy, dude. Welcome back. How you doing? Welcome to the Enhanced podcast. I know people are gonna have the questions for you.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here. Like you guys know, and most everyone knows, I'm just like a peace server Andy, and here to just share my experiences with you guys and take everything, with a big grain of salt, and just ready to be wrong, but also ready to potentially debate certain angles. But I'm here. I'm excited, man. I absolutely love Enhanced Shaman. It is Maybe not the class that I'm maining, but it is probably the most fun, most reliably most fun class to play in Wrath. And I think that's just an objective opinion that is like agreed upon by so many people, which is just kind of crazy.
What are you meaning in Wrath?
Feral and DK. Enhance is up there. I'm gonna 100% be playing it, but it's not gonna be a priority for me right off the jump.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
I think after watching Jroo and Ouro play on the beta and like playing with them and see their damage, I instantly was like, I have to try this out, dude. Because everyone also, all of the private server Andes, like the videos were always like, it's so hard. Like this and Feral are so hard to get good at. And I was like, I have to see this, dude. If so, that means it's fun, right? Enhanced Shaman is a fucking blast, guys. You picked right. What a great spec.
I ended up watching more Ouro streams on beta than like almost everybody's streams because it was so fun to watch. And then everybody kept talking shit to me because I'm playing Ellie. They're like, yeah, you should play yours doing. Do Euro. And I'll go watch him. I'm like, damn, this looks so much fun. It does look more fun than Ellie. And then bro, I learned my lesson. I did 1 or 2 heroics with him, and he, no matter what character was on, he would smack my ass around. So I was like, yo, I'm never doing heroics with him again, bro.
Bro, it's so hard.
I know, bro. You do so many with him, and you just get your ass beat all the time. You never learn your lesson, bro.
No, we're close. We're right on each other.
Dude,
but we're stressing.
Shamans, bro. He
stressing.
He'll start one shaman, and then he gears it up, and then he locks it out, and he does it again. He just chain runs it. And every day I'd wake up, I'm like, dude, there's no way this is a new shaman. It's a fucking new shaman, bro. This is not even like another class. It's just, how many shamans did you have total?
I locked out. I couldn't make any more, so I had just the max.
It's so crazy, dog. Pumping too. No matter what, all the raids we did, it was a lot of fun. We're all in this one right here behind us. Yeah, you were slapping.
Yeah,
bro.
I just have a dented brain or a dented head. I just enjoy it way too much.
It's a lot of fun. It looks like a lot of fun. I never played it, so, but it does look a lot of fun. Everyone says it's a cracked out Ellie, and Ellie's a lot of fun, so I can imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely really fast paced. It's dynamic, so it's not a static rotation anymore like it was in TBC. And it kind of feels like if you played Windwalker Monk in retail, it kind of feels like that. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of micro involved with it too if you want to. You don't have to, but there's some tech that came out that's a bit different than what was on private servers. So it's a good time for sure.
APM is what makes it so fun. You're always pressing. You're going to have arthritis by 42, dog.
I think there's like a pretty high floor. Like as long as you're pressing buttons, I think it is like pretty easy to do well on an enhance. But the more you play it, the more you just realize like there's so much that you can improve upon. And just like I already had a head start on people that are like switching from a different class to enhance and wrath. Even though TBC and wrath enhance are like different, you still kind of get a head start. But just from playing on the beta, like every heroic you do, you like just find more ways to improve. So I think it's been super fun. Fire Ellie is, I don't know if it's like engaging or like horrible, but there's a skill gap to Fire Ellie. So
do you snapshot Fire Ellie?
Yeah, man. It's so much fun. I love snapshotting. I probably would like Unholy DK, but snapshotting is a good time.
It's so powerful in Wrath.
So many classes can snapshot.
Yeah,
something.
it's so
crazy.
Unreal how strong snapshotting things is.
Yeah, it's more like there's more classes that can't snapshot than there are that can. I feel like.
Yeah.
When you snapshot your Fire Ellie, or even just in general, like if you just like, use your Fire Ellie, like it's gonna do so much damage. It's crazy. I think the highest, I didn't like sweat it as hard as I think Ouro did put in more work to try to get a fat snapshot off on the beta. Mm-hmm. I think I got my Fire Ellie up to like 950 DPS, just the Fire Ellie. That does not include Fire Nova or anything. So,
oh my god!
Damn.
Like if Blizzard did let Fire Ellie reset on boss completion, it would be ridiculous. So, it makes sense that like it doesn't reset, but come on, like Rebirth and DI reset really, and Fire Ellie doesn't. It's whatever.
Didn't they change, or did they not change that?
Did they?
I thought
they didn't change it.
I don't think so.
Rebirth resetting is so lame.
The shaman bias is unreal, dude. Crazy.
They literally actually on the first blue post, like the first post about it was like, here's a couple of the things we're gonna not allow, and everything they named was like shaman, ancestral recall. Like We're not going to allow these things, you know?
Just
Like,
let 'em
what
have
is
it,
the
to be
point?
honest.
It kind of
In
hard
fairness,
nerfs
though-
shamans a lot.
Wow.
Like just in general, because now everyone continues to have sated when they die, so there's like a lot less need for like having a second lust outside of like your wolves and stuff. Because it's not like someone can die, get rebirthed, and then get another lust out. So shamans like across the board with those changes were kind of nerfed in terms of their desirability, just slightly.
This is almost 1400 DPS from your fire LE totem. By the way,
Yeah, that was I think
while
my
it's up.
fattest fire elite. It was with Dying Curse, Wild Pot Magic, and just basically everything. It was cracked for sure.
Oh my
But the whole thing with if you could, parsing guilds will always have like everything, every pull. So I think if they did reset it, it would be broken though for a lot of people because it is so strong.
Yeah, for sure.
What all does, I mean, we'll obviously get into this later, but realistically, like, I'm so curious right now, what all does the Fire LE snapshot on?
Spell power.
It's purely spell power?
So its mana scales within its health scales with your stamina, and basically its auto attacks and everything else is all on your spell power.
Wow.
You can buff it with Might and Kings too, if you would like, but it's primarily spell.
Can it get hit by Bloodlust, or would you Bloodlust before using it?
You cannot lust it. It's considered a guardian.
Yeah.
Your wolves can be lusted, but your fire elite cannot.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about the wolf snapshotting too. There's so much.
The wolves are dope. That's like the
Dude.
dopest thing about him.
The dopest thing
Wolves
is
are
the
dynamic.
speed. The dopest thing is
Wolves
the
are
speed.
dynamic, but yeah, the wolves don't snapshot. It's always checking your attack power at the moment and updating.
That's epic.
I've been keeping up with like the WoW Sim Discord and the like the enhancement section, and they talked a little bit about Fire Elite potentially snapshotting with your spell hit as well in terms of like your melee attacks. But it looks like the amount of like testing that they have is pretty limited, and so I'm not too sure on that. But I did read that recently, so I figured I'd mention that. But that's something I'm not too sure on, and even if it did, I'm not sure that the amount of like misses you would get would like justify. I mean, like, we'll get to it, but you're gonna be gemming for, well, in my opinion, I think you want spell hit cap for sure. So even if we're talking about overall, like obviously an overall, right, like spell hit after a certain point, like if we're gonna gem to 17%, there's no like that, there's after a certain point there's no benefit on trash. But I personally, even in like a situation where you're going for overall, I'm still gonna gem for spell hit cap. So
do you feel the same way, Ouro?
Personally, I have two different sets. For trash, I only get the cap for trash, which is 5% for Janai and 6% for everything else. And I stack crit and spell power. And then for bosses, I agree, you go with 17% hit or whatever you have for the raid buffs. Because I feel like the trash dies so quick that essentially, at least in Nax, that your Fire Nova is going to be your greatest contributing.
Yeah,
it's a thing that's going to contribute to your DPS the most for sure. So that's typically what I do.
I think the thing with the two different sets is like in Nax specifically, I'm just not sure how much benefit you would get from it. And then like a lot of the pieces, like I've noticed, like I was trying to craft like two different sets, and like I could, but it's also like Dying Curse has hit. There might be some pieces that you would want to use on like trash and also bosses, but if you want to get to that hit cap, that spell hit cap, you would need to put hit in that piece. So unless you have two of that piece, like it's something you could eventually work to. But in especially, I don't know about, like, I can't speak on Ulduar trash, TOGC trash, ICC trash, but
there is no TOGC trash. Don't worry about it.
There isn't. Okay, so I'm not sure how much use realistically I'd be able to get out of two sets, but yes, ideally for sure two sets. If I could only use one set though, like if you said to me you're only allowed to have one set no matter what for some odd reason, I would be gemming for spell hit cap on that set.
It's not that bad actually, because a lot of the gear that you want for trash is completely different than what you want for bosses. Because a lot of the gear that is just going to get sharded if you don't use it, it's male spell power crit gear. There's literally no one else who would use it. So I think getting 2 sets is 100% realistic. I was trying to compete with some people on trash damage, like with warlocks and whatnot, and using my 1 set it didn't really work. But the last batch of the last batch of Nax I did, I switched over to swapping in between, and it helps so much. So it's definitely something I'm going to be doing for sure.
For overall.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you don't care about overall damage, it is what it is. You don't have to. But like I get really sweaty when it comes to that sort of stuff. So
I know, dude.
The fun of a raid. That's the funnest
That's
part
the
of a
most
raid.
fun. Yeah.
I feel like
That's
you're
like-
missing out on a lot of enhance if you don't do that, because they're so. That's
where enhance
overall
shines.
Hound, yeah, bro. The overall
Yeah.
hounds.
Yeah. It is interesting with overall, like, do you ever see issues with like just so much like dragging things because you drop your totem?
I feel
so
like I feel like Enhance always gets this rap that mobility hurts them severely, but in truth, like dragging mobs like isn't the worst thing for Enhance. As long as you're maintaining like melee uptime, then you're not gonna lose like good PPM on your Maelstrom weapon, which is gonna get out more chain lightning on trash. You are gonna be refreshing the totems anyway, just because Magma Totem doesn't last all that long. I want to say it's 20 seconds, so you're going to be refreshing and you're going to be hitting Fire Nova. It hurts, obviously, like mobility hurts you a little bit, of course, but I think people kind of blow it out of proportion a lot of times. It's just what I want to say.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, I'm in a full agreement there. The top overall will be most likely, obviously there's player skill, but it's going to be the fastest run is going to have the top overall. There's not going to be a weird situation in which like you wouldn't drag for an enhanced to have higher overall, if that makes sense. So
yeah. And I think a lot of guilds do like big pulls into a spot because you want to just blow it all up because you can pull so big in Nax. You're going to be able to pull so massive.
I think the only issue with the dragging is if you're having issues with mana. Sometimes if you're constantly redropping magma, it's hard on mana, especially like after that jump here where you go into the if you don't get levitated, it's kind of rough. But besides that, yeah, I don't really think redropping totems is that big of a deal. It's a half a global, so
I've already felt like with like the template gear, mana and Nax can be a problem sometimes, but the more AP you get, obviously, right, and the better you get at using Sham Rage, the more accustomed you are to using Sham Rage and Nax, your mana situation is only going to get easier. And obviously, like after progression, like there may be situations like where you don't have to use it defensively, where maybe progression you do. So I think mana may be an issue early on, but at some point it won't be, right? Because like I guess we didn't talk about this, but Sham Rage and TBC was a 2-minute cooldown instead of a 1 minute, and it worked off of 30% of your AP. Now in Wrath, it's a 1-minute cooldown and it gets mana based off 15% of your AP. So it's like it's a buff. It's just like obviously each Sham Rage is going to generate less, but the more AP you get, yeah, I think for sure mana will be less of an issue.
Well, we can hit that. We can hit that now. Actually, all of the Shaman class changes from TBC to Wrath of the Lich King. There's quite a few. It's like kind of feels like a whole different class. Can you guys touch on all of the class changes? Shamanistic Rage is like the one that when I first started playing Enhance on the beta, I wasn't using enough. And if you're not using that, your mana is completely screwed.
So in terms of Shaman class changes, the first thing that comes to mind is the quality of life, 1 button press to drop all 4 of your totems. And that is really, really nice. On top of that, you're not twisting any totems anymore. You're not twisting air, you're not twisting fire. So that's huge quality of life, because it kind of felt like every 10 seconds you're pressing 4 or 5 buttons just for totems. Something else is that Cleansing Totem also gets diseases and poisons all at the same time. That's party-wide. And in terms of your stats, Strength is now 1 AP rather than 2. Int is 1 AP, and Agility is 1 AP. Are some of the things that
so all
changed.
All of those stats are the same then?
They changed. Like Int gives
is...
1 AP now based on talents, and Strength is 1 AP rather than 2, and Agility is 1 AP, whereas before it didn't give AP.
Yeah.
So yeah, essentially Strength went from our best stat, arguably, or like one of our best stats, to now it's like really bad, right? So like a lot of the strength pieces in TBC, you'll notice, are not nearly obviously as good in Wrath. And then int also gets a bump. So there was a lot of like random int pieces you'd see in TBC bosses that you're like, that item's garbage. It probably is still garbage, but there are some that aren't actually garbage now. So.
Are things like the Maelstrom procs all the same things you would deal with? I know a huge change is obviously your fire totems. So I'm curious, can you guys like kind of describe that to everyone who hasn't been playing Enhanced Shaman, because it's such a crazy fun spec?
So when it comes to your fire totem, I think what you're referring to is with how you don't have a new totem for Fire Nova. So essentially wherever you drop your active fire totem, whether that be a Fire Ellie, Flame Tongue, whatever, Magma, you press Fire Nova into spell that kind of like does a blast wave around the fire totem.
And
yeah,
so,
I think it's a I definitely like the change to compare to TBC. It just is so much easier, right? It's not really fun. The Fire Nova and Magma and TBC just felt really clunky. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
And they're like slow. Now you have like, what, is it 6 seconds? Maybe it's 3 seconds.
3 on Fire Nova, yeah.
3 second Fire
Glyph.
Nova. It is
Glyph.
so good. It's so fun.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
It's actually one of the most satisfying spells to hit, honestly. It feels like almost as good as hitting like a Howling Blast for me. And the fact that it's like low CD, it's so juicy, dude.
Yeah.
Use it on single target, that glyph?
Yeah.
Yes.
That
Is it
glyph
better
has to
to
be
use single
so
target
good
wise,
for...
or do you take it for the overall?
No, you take it for single target. Like you're dropping Magma Totem and you're hitting Fire Nova on single target.
Single
which
target
is
you are?
great. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They have really, really good like access to cleave.
Dope.
It also makes your rotation like perfect, right? Like you're not too often hitting, what is the ability that sucks? Lava Lash? God, that ability is so weak. Oh my god, it's like only when you get unlucky that you have to press it. It is such a
I think
weak...
I'm in the minority. I actually really like Lava Lash. It's not
Really?
because of its... Yeah, I don't like... It's not because of its like own damage, but because it procs Flame Tongue, which is one of your greatest DPS sources. And on top of that, it can also proc Maelstrom. It's not... You're not going to be pressing it if you have other abilities to press, but it fills up the empty globals. So like it's not just the Lava Lash damage itself, but everything else that it's contributing to.
I didn't even think about Flame Tongue. And with... That's another change, right? Like with us playing now, I guess we should talk about Spellhance versus Enhance in a second, but like we're using Flame Tongue weapon on both weapons, right? You're not like, you don't need a Wind Fury totem or Wind Fury weapon on your main weapon.
And T7 for sure. There might be, it's tough to say for like T8 and beyond, right? Sim is still really early. And then like I don't have a lot of World War experience, so it's tough to say. On overall, it's definitely a hard argument to justify like leaning more physical, right? But yeah, and T7, yeah, for sure, it's double Flame Tongue, and this may be something not everybody knows. Obviously, like Ouro knows and everything that, but for your weapon imbues, you should use rank 9 main hand, rank 10 offhand for Flame Tongue. Essentially, it's just that if you use double rank 10, there's an ICD. It's a fairly short ICD, but still an ICD, right? According to the sim, which obviously is still like in its alpha stage, work in progress, there's like some... I've just been like, I'm not a sim dev, but I've been keeping up with everything. There's still some rotational errors. Like I went through the log, and like there's some things where it's like and obviously like, there's no fire rally and everything. But yeah, according to the sim, it's like a 200 DPS gain to use rank 9 main hand, rank 10 offhand. So, and the reason you use rank 10 offhand, the reason you would use rank 10 offhand is because of Lava Lash, because like Ouro said, it's proccing Flame Tongue, and obviously if you're going to be proccing Flame Tongue more on your offhand, it's beneficial. I will also say on the sim, if you use rank 10 main hand, rank 9 offhand, according to the sim, there's almost no difference. So it's tough to say, but like, yeah, there's not really an argument I could see for rank 10 main hand, rank 9 offhand. May as well just go rank 10 offhand, rank 9 main hand.
Wait, why is the higher rank in the offhand more damage?
Because so if you want to take this.
Oh, okay. No, you're fine. Sorry.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's because so Lava Lash you swing with your offhand, and that's going to proc Flame Tongue a lot. And if you're hitting more Flame Tongues with your offhand, you would prefer the higher rank of Flame Tongue to be in your offhand.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're not really
Absolutely.
staggering your weapons anymore, right? So like even if you were, it wouldn't really matter. But like you're not going to be swinging with your main hand more than your offhand. So
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
There-
100% right.
That's a question I know someone brought up earlier, but do you worry about weapon swing timers now? Because I know that was a big thing in syncing, was like a whole thing. I honestly haven't played Enhanced Shaman in TBC, so how does that
So-
change?
When it comes to min-maxing, you can 100% get value out of paying attention to your swing timer. There's something called Lightning Bolt Weaving that's new with Wrath of the Lich King, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't on private servers, which essentially is when you have Maelstrom Weapon and you cast your ability, and if you do not clip your swings, you can essentially attack and cast your spells at the exact same time. So if you don't have a swing timer, it's like kind of impossible to do accurately. So in terms of like keeping track of your swings, it's really, really good. There's still an ICD of losing flurry stacks in Wrath of the Lich King as well, so that's still the same. But with that being said, a lot of people don't like doing it, and I think it's kind of keeping people away from the class. You can 100% top meters without a swing timer at all, but if you are min-maxing, you should be using it for sure.
But it doesn't matter the times between your main hand and offhand. It's mostly for this lightning bolt weaving and flurry. What
Exactly.
does the flurry clipping do
so
for you?
you can take that. You can take that, Ouro.
Oh, so when you're casting, if you complete your spell before your weapons hit, you will cast a spell and not clip your weapons. However, if your weapons hit before you finish your cast, you will stop swinging and it will reset your swing timer.
Whoa.
Yeah, so as long as you finish the cast before your weapons hit, you will simultaneously do this both at the same time. Cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning or whatever you're casting, and then simultaneously hit. So I think it's a class. It's a feature of the class that a lot of people that did like Raptor Strike weaving on Hunter would really like. Same thing with like Rep Paladins too. It's just like some min-max swing timer manipulation that's really useful.
It reminds me
And in
also
terms
of Rogue back in Classic. You would have to use your abilities after a weapon swing. Do you use your? Then is it like where's the best time within the swing timer to use the lightning bolt?
at the very beginning of it. You only do
That's
it
what I
really
thought.
if you have if you have at least 2 stacks of it. So right after if your weapons are hitting at the exact same time, you essentially cast it immediately after you hit, so you have a better chance of not clipping. And in
That's
terms
what
of
I
like a DPS increase for tier 7, it's about 200-ish.
That's significant enough.
Absolutely, yeah.
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 And-
So yeah, as long as you have one Maelstrom stack, you're not going to really weave with just one Maelstrom stack. But as long as you have one, it doesn't behave like your swing timer does not behave normally like it would with 0 stacks, right? Like does if you had 0 Maelstrom stacks and you try to cast a lightning bolt during your swing timer, it's just going to reset your swing timer, and that's obviously a huge DPS loss. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of, it's pretty intricate, right? Like it's taken me a while on the beta just to get like it down like okay. I don't think it's going to be possible to just hop on Enhance and weave perfectly, especially at like 2 Maelstrom stacks. Like at 4, it's like not easy, but it's like easier just because the cast of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning is so tiny. So, but yeah. And also for anybody that may think it's a bug, there is an Elitist Jerks post, I want to say from a long time ago, that confirms that this behavior was happening in Wrath as well.
Are you ever casting the Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning at 2 or 4 stacks? I thought you were always waiting until the 5 the instant.
No, yeah,
that's
you
the
are.
weaving portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you are casting Lightning Bolt before you get 5 for like maximum DPS. You can completely ignore it and only cast it at 5, but you can do it at 2 or above.
There's a lot of times where you like will just get a bunch of Maelstrom stacks at once, so it's like just because you are using Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt F5 stacks doesn't mean you're playing wrong, but there are definitely times where you'll notice like, all right, I've got Storm Strike Shock and like Fire Nova on cooldown. I've got 3 Maelstrom stacks and my swing's about to expire. I'm going to make sure that I'm ready to cast Lightning Bolt the second that swing finishes, so then I can cast Lightning Bolt during that swing timer. and then
That's
also
so
melee.
sick. I love this, dude. I had no idea about this at all whatsoever. That is so dope.
It's really cool. I know that there's this interaction that exists, and I want to ask you guys about it because I actually haven't looked into like how valuable it actually is. But as long as you have at least one Maelstrom weapon stack, like we talked about, I know that you can use that cast instead to cast like a lava burst, which isn't going to expend your Maelstrom weapon stacks, which is nice, and it also does get the effect of the cast going out. Do you guys happen to know the, value of that? If it's possible, maybe to squeeze that in between melee swings. Have y'all looked into that at all?
Lava burst does not. So it does get affected in terms of like it won't reset your swing timer, but it does not get the benefit from Maelstrom weapon, if that makes sense. So it's always going to be
Right.
what is it, a 2-second cast, right? According to the sim, and again, obviously, I'll throw out the disclaimer again. The sim's in its alpha. There's still some issues, right? But just for like, it's rough. It's a rough estimate. The sim has lava burst weaving as a very, very minor increase compared to lightning bolt weaving.
Of course.
So
the windows for it would be really, really slim, of course, considering how slow of a cast it is and how it's not getting any reduced cast speed from Maelstrom weapon. It's just the fact that it's not resetting your swing timer because a Maelstrom weapon exists in your character is the cool part. I just wanted to throw it out there.
Damn. That is.
There are some
does that
people
mean
that like
all
playing
casts don't reset swing timer while you have at least one proc of Maelstrom weapon? Or is it just those offensive ones?
It's anything listed under Maelstrom, as well as Lava Burst, like Lava Burst, yeah. Like we just talked about that, but
yeah. What were you saying, Ouro? Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, it's okay. There's some people who like playing two-handed enhancement, and like lava burst weaving is like a huge part of that. So it's definitely not a main. It's very niche for sure, but yeah, two-handed enhanced lava burst weaving is a thing that some people like doing. So thought I'd mention that.
That's great.
Or I'm seeing a lot of people ask for your weak auras are on your Discord, right?
Yes, correct.
A lot of people asking how your lines work on it. You want to tell them how?
Yeah,
oh,
the ones
for
on the
the
swing timer.
timer?
Yeah, there are 4 people have asked how your lines are working. What do the lines indicate?
So the lighter blue line at the beginning is so there's 2 blue lines, right? So those indicate where you want your swing timer to be before you start casting. So as you gain more and more Maelstrom stacks, they'll move towards the end of the swing timer. So you want your swings to be before those lines, essentially.
Or your cast to be before those lines, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. That's amazing. I'm gonna literally. I like grabbed one weak aura that looks very similar to this, but then I was like, I'm just gonna grab Ouro's. It's so good. That's so clutch.
Yeah, I definitely did not make that swing timer. That was made by someone else in the Shaman Discord. So big props to him for making it because it makes it so much easier to do.
Yeah. Swing timer is no longer working. Weak auras. Yeah, I'm curious. Are you having any issues with swing timer working on the pre-patch?
I have not. I'm using the ZA swing time fixer. That might be the problem, but people definitely have said that they've been having issues with it, but I haven't had any.
The same guy that uploaded that specific swing timer, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It was like Raoul something. He also uploaded a fix for it. I believe every single swing timer. He just like made a weak aura that should fix every swing timer. Just like adds whatever API. I don't know exactly how it works, but
do you have
I'll link
that
in the chat?
Yes.
Yeah, I
oh
do,
my
yeah.
god, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, we'll throw that in the chat.
What are some of the other class changes moving into Wrath of the Lich King? Is there anything else specific? I know, obviously you get new CDs with like wolves and such. So either all 3 of you, anyone, start with you, Jroo, hit me with the next class change that you can think of. You're on the spot.
The next class change, I mean, this isn't okay. Well, can I talk about wolves, or is that does that not count? Okay,
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, so wolves are completely new cooldown, obviously, for enhance. It's the bottom. It's the last point in enhance. You're pretty much going to take it no matter what. Potentially, unless you were, This is the reason Rugs came on the podcast. And maybe if you were going to go Healhance, you wouldn't take it, but you're taking it no matter what, pretty much. Even if you are Healhance, I'm pretty sure you're taking it like for heroics and stuff. But
Yeah,
they're pets. They're controlled pets. You get a pet bar. They don't snapshot, but they do scale from your AP, so you don't have to worry about like getting a big snapshot off like you would your Fire Ellie. But obviously, they scale from your AP. There is a glyph that they get like an extra 30% AP. We don't take that, at least yet. There's maybe a world down the road where we do. Like if we run Winfrey Flame Tongue, maybe we replace Flame Tongue glyph with Feral Spirits. It's tough to say right now. Obviously, it's just too early, I think. And I personally haven't done enough research into T8, T9, T10, just because I've been so focused on T7, obviously, and just obviously getting used to Wrath Enhance. But it's a 3-minute cooldown. They do a pretty solid amount of damage. They're not going to compete with like your Fire Ellie if you're using Fire Ellie, but they're a pretty solid amount of damage, as well as something a little bit underrated is they get the ability Spirit Walk, which is essentially a sprint.
That's
pretty nice.
So big, dude.
As long as you use it, I want to say within the first 12 seconds of you summoning your wolves. I want to say 12. It might be slightly different than that, but as long as you use it one time and then within the first 12 seconds you summon your wolves, you get to use it a second time. Versus like if you used it 30 seconds into your wolves, you obviously wouldn't get to use it a second time. And with wolves resetting on boss, it's pretty nice, right? Like you can theoretically, I don't know if you would do this, but like, cast wolves on a boss, already have sprint, run already sprinted after a boss dies, and be able to cast wolves again with another 2 sprints. Like you'd be able to run super quick. I don't know if you would, right? Because you obviously like that'd be a loss of uptime for your wolves for DPS, and if not everybody else in your raid can sprint like that, like why would you? But it's worth noting. Wolves are awesome. One thing is, I'm not a big pet person, but I haven't had problems with them doing anything weird. Like I haven't had.
Do they still spawn on aggressive? Because I knew they did on the beta, right?
For me, they don't. I have not had problems with that at all. So I don't know. Maybe other people have, but I have not had problems with them spawning on aggressive. So.
And you get a pet bar with the wolves, so like you actually get to control. Is there any other abilities other than the sprint that you want to have your own keybinds for?
No, just passive attack, obviously, and then Spirit Walk, which is the sprint.
It sounds kind of nice having it bound, if you ask me. For PvE, it's nice, but especially for PvP, it's definitely something that should be bound.
The sprint,
probably, yeah.
Yeah, the stun. There's a stun connected to the wolves.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
How
really
long
really
is the
nice.
Stun?
I don't know offhand. I'll be lying. It's like 1 to 2 seconds. It's not super long.
Yeah, it feels really short. I think it's like 1 second.
Worth it.
More of a spell interrupt than anything.
Yeah. I wonder what it GCDs with. And you said earlier the wolves are dynamic, so like any buffs you get while having the wolves, it's taking into account your current attack power and everything at all times.
Correct. Yep.
Can even give them Kibler's bits if you want and might them.
Yes. The interesting thing, I'm curious if there's going to be or is a weak horror yet that you can press to Kibler's both of them. Or like a macro to Kibler's, because right now I would imagine there's not like a targeting. Well, you would have to target the wolf and then press Kibler's, right? Like for hunters, I have like a macro that Dar's made that's like my literal character panel, and I can actually show it really fast in the background because there's a beta version that's not out to the public yet, but he will release for people to get for Death Knights, and it's literally like I can click my buffs in this character kit panel and it'll do the buff. So I can click like my Kibblers and it'll buff my pet always.
You don't have to click your pet to use Kibblers though. You just use Kibblers and it automatically goes to your pet.
Yeah, but you have 2 wolves. Would you need to do both is what I'm saying.
I assume it would count.
Has anyone tried?
Both of them?
I'm assuming you guys have tried, right?
I have not tried.
Does it count for both of the pets?
It only counts for one of them.
Well, that's lame.
Yeah.
What happens if you use 2 back to back? It just goes to the same one, or?
I believe so. Yeah.
Crazy.
And then the next big change also is your Fire Ellie totem is a lot more important now. Ouro, you've kind of mastered the snapshot of that. Can you go into everything that goes into it? People are curious about Dying Curse with it and how you get Dying Curse now.
Okay, so when it comes to Fire Ellie was actually really, for parsing, extremely important in TBC. Like for Black Temple, Black Temple, Mount Hyjal, Sunwell Plateau, it kind of came vogue. People were doing it the whole expansion, but there it was really really important to be able to parse well. Like if you look at all the parses, like in the top 10, everyone uses like a snapshotted fire rally. But when it comes to Wrath, some things are different. It has a larger mana pool, so it's casting more Fire Novas. In terms of the coefficients, in TBC, Fire Nova was 33%. It jumps up to 100% in Wrath of the Lich King. It's cracked.
Off of your spell power.
Yes, it's 100% off your spell power.
Oh
and
my
then
god.
Yeah, and the TBC coefficient for melees was 41%, and Wrath it goes down to 14, which stinks. But because it's casting more Fire Novas, because it has a larger mana pool, it roughly is. It's not the worst thing in the world. But if you're talking about just like Dying Curse specifically, as Jroo was saying, it doesn't really take into account the sim doesn't take into account fire rally snapshotting. But I did some like napkin math, and Dying Curse would be something like a 355 DPS increase just off the fire rally snapshotting. So if you like use a spell power flask, a wild magic potion, it comes out to something like 516 DPS. It's actually really nutty.
And then do you change your flask like right after the snapshot?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's epic, dude.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
I'm getting
also-
so excited right now. Go.
I mean,
Also,
we can meme about it if you want to talk about it. What's up, Dying Curse Prio? Question mark.
So Dying Curse, I'm not gonna say that Shaman should not get it before Demo Warlocks. Let me just say that right now.
I was just hoping that you would say that because I was gonna flame you if you said anything.
No,
other than that.
I'm not that much of a loot goblin, okay? But it's really good for us. We benefit from hit a lot, not just for getting to spell hit cap, but it's really good for melee above hit cap because of Flame Tongue. And on top of that, like just with fire release snapshotting, it's cracked. It's good. One thing that also should be mentioned is that Dying Curse is not like DST, where you have one shot a week at getting it. It drops off multiple bosses and
Like
Nax.
3, right?
Yeah.
3 or
So
4? Yeah.
unless you're really unlucky, you're not gonna. You should see it. More than one person in your guild is gonna get it for sure. So Shaman should be on that list just based off of fire release snapshotting, I would say.
You're not delusional if a lock gets it over a mage. Demo gets it first, and then you can fight over it. Peasants.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree with that 100%.
I would probably have Enhance. It's tough to say. I mean, first off, I don't even know if we should talk about it that much because, like you said, it's going to drop like candy. But I don't know specifically how good it is for people other than Demo. Obviously, for Demo, it'd be dumb not to give it to them first. But I would probably have Enhance lower on the Prio just because if you're not using Fire Rally, it's not like it's bad. It's still like about tied with BIS, at least according to the sim. So I definitely would use it as my BIS because of Fire Rally Snapshot, but it's also tough to say. Like,
what would be the alternative?
The alternatives would probably be Mirror of Truth and Meteor at Whetstone if you didn't use Dying Curse, which are both.
Must be
from
nice
Dungeon.
not needing greatness.
Yeah, greatness.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like obviously going from 2 AP per strength to 1 like sucks, but that's like the silver lining for me is like, thank God greatness is not BIS, because if it was, and thank God it's not pre-BIS, because if it was pre-BIS and not phase 1 BIS,
that'd be the worst. That's the worst possible situation for like only the really hardcore guilds. Like for you just over at Progress, you're like, damn it, dude, there goes 50k.
Yeah.
Is there any other class changes you want to talk about before I ask you guys about the juicy question, Spellhance versus normal enhance and what it is? Are there any other class changes that anyone wants to mention?
Did we talk about Fire Nova at all yet?
Briefly.
But not like the change, because in TBC, Fire Nova is a totem. It's a Fire Nova totem. And changes from that to being a spell that you cast that originates off of your fire totem, whatever that is, whether that be magma, fire ellie, flame tongue, you name it. It's all originated off that totem placement, which spawns at your front left of your character.
Every time.
Every single time. And because it's like low CD and really high priority and does so much damage, it's just a really nice quality of life change for the rotation and for just the gameplay of Enhance. awesome change. And then it also has like a funny moment where if you do have like a huge fire rally snapshot, obviously you're going to want your fire rally to slap, but if the boss gets moved away from your fire rally totem, your fire novas won't be hitting it. So you might be in a situation where you're asking your tanks like, hey, can you drag the boss like 10 yards back where you were? Like, can you go near my totem, please? Because you're like outranging my fire nova, and that is a big loss.
I would
Um,
100% do that.
it's
Ask
a
the
big deal. I
tanks.
mean, that's like
Yeah.
what, your every fourth global is fire nova or something like that. Like you're hitting
Every
it
tank
so
needs to know
much.
that. Do you leave the Fire Ellie totem out, or do you, because it's so strong, or do you have to like put a new, like a magma totem down?
So if it's
I
single
think-
target, it depends on how juiced your fire rally is, right? Like if you have a dying curse and like it's just like super cracked, there's no shot that I'd like resummon it for single target. Like it does so much damage. Its melees were hitting for like 3,000 on average, so it's hitting as hard as a fire nova essentially, right? So single target, if there's a ton of movement, you just keep it out. But if it's cleave, yeah, you probably should replace it, if you ask me, because of just how it's hitting more than one target.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's also like kind of depends on how much said mob or boss is being dragged. Like for Hygen, I don't know that you would fire Ellie on Hygen. Like if you're trying to parse, I guess you would. It's tough to say. I would not. I don't enjoy recasting magma every 5 seconds or whatever it is. So I probably would just leave the fire Ellie down, and I think that's probably more DPS. It's like if you assuming you have a pretty decent snapshot. So.
Oh, that is a very specific fight that like absolutely every time would be annoying, dude.
Yeah,
Like
that's my,
probably
like,
the
least
most
favorite
annoying
boss.
fight. Yeah, that's fair.
But I guess like other super small changes, obviously, Earthshock is no longer an interrupt. It now applies a very small attack speed, or is it date? It's attack speed reduction, right? I want to say like 10%.
So
Yeah,
it's
it
like
doesn't matter in raids
a-
really, because there's
Yeah, it's
Thunderclap?
essentially it's essentially now just damage, and you get wind shear, which is just your new interrupt, not on the global every 6 seconds. So it's essentially Earthshock, but just the interrupt part, which is really overpowered. Also, you do not have poison cleansing and disease cleansing anymore. You just have cleansing totem. It does not instantly cleanse anymore, right? Like you can no longer just like spam your cleansing totem like
Mhm.
it used to be able to in TBC, but for quality of life, it's obviously nice to have both, like, you know, have one totem be able to do both of those. So, and then
Is
you
it
get cure toxins,
ticks?
which
Kind of like tremor totem
yes.
now. Okay.
yeah, it's ticks. It was ticks in TBC as well, but it like instantly it instantly ticked, and now it does not instantly tick. So,
Yeah.
and now you also have cure toxins, which is just your like cleanse, disease, and poison ability. So, which
And you have
again just combines both.
how many options of different totem sets do you get? Because you have literally multiple buttons that summon 4 sets of preset totems that you've decided.
You get 3.
3. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's 3. At least the way I've been using it in T7 specifically is I've got one set that puts down all 4 totems.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the totems that you place down we can talk about that if we want to talk about that now or maybe
Yeah.
later. It doesn't matter. But
Maybe during the
okay,
rotation.
we'll wait. But essentially, yeah. Like, so I've got one set that drops all 4. I'm assuming most people do. I've got one set that drops everything but fire, because it doesn't make sense to, like, if you're running into a pack, right? Ideally you want to be able to drop totems before you get there, right? Because you don't want to drop totems right on top of it, just because that's going to be a loss of like other abilities that you'd be able to cast. You might lose a fire nova if you have to do that, right? So I've got one set that does all but fire, and then I've got one that kind of depends on the case, right? But a lot of times in Nax, what it's just been instead of like healing stream as my third totem, it's been cleansing totem. There may be, it's going to depend, right? Like, to me, I have like the one that drops all 4, one that drops everything but fire, and then the third one I'm kind of using is like a case by case. It really kind of depends on the raid, the dungeon, but it's definitely ideal to have it like planned out in advance, right? Because you don't want to be like finicking with your like totem sets like mid raid, because, you know, obviously if you care about overall, that's a pretty significant loss, and in general, it's just like I find that if I have to tinker with stuff like that mid raid, it like really takes away from like my ability to concentrate. So.
And the totems you drop are static because you're using the 3 sets, so you're using the same totems, right? Because like you don't need like I would assume like Wind
Yeah,
Fury
pretty,
Totem.
for the most part, yeah. There's still totems you would bind individually, like grounding is one you're going to bind individually. Tremor. There's still use cases to bind stuff like Strength, Wind Fury, Wrath of Air individually. I would probably recommend it if you have the binds, but like if you're limited on binds, it's probably one of the first things I'd cut. So yeah, I don't know what I'm curious as to how Ouro handles that. I don't know if it's similar to me or not, but
Yeah, so in terms of not having a fire totem in one of your sets is something I 100% do, because sometimes like you have to redrop totems, but you don't want to kill your fire ellie. So if you redrop it with a magma, it just goes away, right? So I think that is really, really smart. Most people should do that. But most of the time, I'm only using 2 sets. A lot of times, I'm not using the third. So it's really it's very niche to use a third, I would say.
I agree for sure. There's just like, I guess like the one that pops into my mind is Hygen, just because like I have cleansing totem bound individually, but it's nice to have it bound with my other 2 totems, so I don't have to drop like the set of 3 that isn't cleansing and then use another global on cleansing. It's nice to just have all 3 down in one global rather than one global and then a half global after that. So
I for sure agree with that. One thing that we didn't mention is thank God we don't have to have multiple shamans in raids anymore because of raid wide lust. That was like the biggest thing
Yeah.
I can think of.
Every group
Why
needs a
thankfully?
shaman.
Because people didn't want to play shamans in Wrath or in TBC, and they felt forced to. And I think that's one reason why I think Shaman Enhanced specifically is going to be like one of the most underplayed classes in Wrath. That's extremely fun, simply because people are just sick of playing Shaman. Like a lot of people felt forced to play it, and they're just happy to get the fuck off of it. So I think that's the reason why.
I think that's a really good take, and I sadly like have to agree, like because it's sad because to me like Enhance is by far the most fun DPS to play, especially melee. I think Elemental is slept on. Elemental is solid, especially if you want to play something that's like strong early and then switch to something that scales better late. And I think Resto Shaman plays a lot better than how it plays right now. That's for damn sure. Whether it's like as viable like is another story, but like I sadly think it's true, and it's just weird that we're going from like a 5/6/7 shaman meta to like a 1 to 2, maybe 3 shaman meta is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and people just avoid it.
Shamans were like the most like key thing. It's like you had more shamans like than you did like groups sometimes. And you just obviously needed to like move them around, and like moving shamans for bloodlust was like griefing whoever had to do it unless you had the weak aura. Now you don't really need to plan that at all. And also with less resets after every boss now, which is gonna get cheesed. Is gonna get cheesed for sure,
cheesy.
dude.
Feels pretty cheesy already, to be honest. I'm
Dude,
with
me
it.
and Ouro
As a Demo
tested
Lock,
so
I'm with
much.
it, but oh man, it feels very fucking feels pretty cheesy.
Me and Ouro tested it in ZA, and we were like, now you could find a way to engage boss in Nax. You can engage with like a rogue or something, and with a Noobricon, and then reset a noob, and the whole raid still gets bloodlust reset, so they could be somewhere else. It's gonna happen, and probably potentially on the world first race. Maybe I don't know if it's worth it, but it's gonna happen, and Blizzard's gonna need to do something there, because that's crazy. You just permanently bloodlusted, permanently have all of your 3-minute CDs. It is nice change,
Yeah,
but also exploitable.
If Blizzard doesn't do anything about it, it's just going to be an issue that Warcraft log solves, kind of like they did with chickens. They're just going to ban that sort of behavior. It would be easy to check in logs to see if people are engaging in that sort of cheesing. And if they ban it, no one's going to do it. So
That's true. Warcraft logs, come to our savior, please.
I've seen a couple people ask this, so I want to ask it. We usually ask later the stackability of enhanced raids, but this kind of goes with the conversation with the lack of shaman, people wanting to play shamans, and how lust is raid wide. Do you see a viability of running 2 shamans, 2 enhances specifically? Is there a downside to having more than one?
Jump on this one if I can. I know you guys probably have opinions, but I really, really do think there is a possibility for double enhance to be really, really strong, especially for the first 2 phases. I think obviously, like we've seen already just from beta raids, which is like a small window into what we are predicting the meta to be, enhance is pumping overall and single target in Nax Ramus. And I think in my experience in Old War, that doesn't slow down. That doesn't change. Like if anything, like set bonuses and trinkets in Old War uplift enhance even further. They are dominant in Old War. They're really, really good. The biggest downside to enhance in a lot of cases is that they can be a little floor povy. And I think that goes away with more gear. Not only does more gear like help you survive more, but it allows you to use your shamanistic rage for mechanics rather than for your mana management. And so I do think that like there is a case to be made for double enhance, but I wouldn't be against it, but I'm not gonna necessarily like endorse it for my raid that I'm in. But I'm right. That's where I'm at. What do you think, guys?
So I think it's 100% viable, but I don't think it's going to be practical for a lot of guilds. When my guilds have done like signups for what you're looking to play for in Wrath of the Lich King, every single shaman, every single enhancement said not enhancement. They were like went DK or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I was the only
That's
enhancement
crazy.
shaman.
I feel like there's a lot of. I feel like there'd be a lot of people wanting to play. That's like the main talked about.
It's so
for
fun.
shamans,
Yeah,
though,
it's
yeah.
crazy.
Same
It's
thing
very,
happened in
very
Fusion.
fun.
Yeah, it
We
happens
had
everywhere.
one enhanced sign up in Fusion.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think it is though. Like Ouro was saying, is like people are just like overplaying shaman because they did it reluctantly in TBC. It wasn't like
true.
they were excited to play shaman. It was like you're basically forced to. Like if you're a healer, it's like you're a shaman. That's it.
It's hard to be melee and not want to play a DK right now. I think it's like it's hard to like everybody wants to play DK. Like their deck's hard for it. You know what I mean? I feel like I see a lot of DKs and a lot of rogues out there in the world.
Enhance also, just in the grand scheme of things, has never been a class fantasy that most people have like resonated with. I know like some people don't
That's
care
true.
about that, but a lot of people do, right? Like there's a reason that everybody likes warrior, rogue, warlock. Like those class fantasies are just frankly way cooler than enhance. Like I'm sorry, but I don't like the class like enhance to me just doesn't. I don't get anything from that. Warrior I think is like badass. Obviously like it doesn't really matter because I care way more about like how the class actually feels. But there's never been a time in WoW where where people are like dying to play enhance because it's so cool. It's like
that's so crazy too, but that's so on point because like I've never thought of it that way. I've never before seeing how crazy they can be in Wrath and like playing it now on the beta a ton. Before that, I never once in my history of playing World of Warcraft thought about playing an enhanced shaman. I just was like, I don't care about that, you know? It is that one, it really doesn't have this crazy alluring class fantasy. Like a hunter is just like this like majestic, like as a little kid, you always wanted like this pet like hound that would just like fight for you, or like a giant hawk or something. I don't know, you know? And like druid is cool. Like enhance is like, what?
I feel like from an outsider's perspective, it's got some good class fantasy. Or the totems, the melee, Zug, the wolves. You don't know shit about them, but I mean, the totems, the Worth Ellie, the Fire Ellie.
They've got Thrall. Like we've got Thrall, and that's about it. I mean, no, it's cool, right? But I'm just speaking, not even speaking for myself. Like, I mean, like I don't love enhanced class fantasy, but I don't like hate it either. I'm speaking for everybody else. Like, they got Thrall, and a lot of people don't like Thrall anymore, right? Because of like the way they. This is irrelevant, but the way they kind of like destroyed his character and at least
so lame
his opinions. Yeah.
The way that Game of Thrones season 8'd him. Yeah.
That's like a good analogy.
but
it's so fun. It is. So going back to Jroo, what about your opinion on stackability, especially from the perspective of speed runs? What do you think? Is it possible to bring multiple enhances? And even
I think
even
it is
more?
possible. To me, the way it feels right now is they're gonna be their best in T7. I think the ceiling on enhances you would bring is probably 2 in a speed run, maybe 1. I don't in T7. I'm not sure. Like I really agree with like the floor POV thing. Like I'm not saying that that's what you were saying. Later tiers for sure, right? Like I've heard that enhances if like T8 is like T5 and TBC for sure. Yeah. Which that's kind of what I've heard. In Nax, I have no worries about it. Like I could almost get smacked by a boss that isn't patchwork and potentially live. Probably not, but like you get what I mean. The stackability though, I'm not sure if it's there. I think there are probably other classes that are just more stackable. Not that Enhance isn't stackable, but I think one thing that really hurts the stackability of Enhance, and Rugs mentioned this earlier, or maybe Ouro, I forget who mentioned it, but the fact that Sated does no longer reset when you die and get rezzed, that like kills and enhances stackability. Because if that was the case, right, like you want multiple enhances, because obviously no run, unless you're looking for like you know, an undying run, like that's going to be really important to have. But obviously with the changes, that's kind of relevant now. So I'm not sure you would run more than a couple, but it's tough to say. I mean, if you could get like a bunch of gamer enhances that are able to pull off really big snapshots all the time, but again, I'm like in a speed run, how many fire rallies do you get? 3, 4?
It's
like something around
fast,
there, right?
Yeah.
And then like even in that case, right, like you're not going to get a full 2 minutes of effectiveness, most likely, depending on the boss you use it on. So it's tough to say. I think demo locks are looking really good in T7.
Yeah.
DKs, I'm sure, are looking great as well. So I think there are other classes you could potentially stack. I don't think there's a world. I mean, like the buffs are just too good and they're raid wide. There's no reason to not run a bounce comp. Like you're gonna take 95% of the buffs, if not 100% of them, right? Like if you go on like Wrath raid comp and try to like craft a huge stack, it's kind of hard. But yeah, so maybe that's a bit of a cop out answer, but I think you could run a couple. I'm not sure I don't think you're gonna be stacking them in T7 though.
Yeah. Do you think, well, in that case, there's another person question or asking, if you only bring one shaman, or do you think you're bringing multiple shamans? And if you're only bringing one shaman, would it be the Enhance?
Oh yeah, if you're bringing one shaman in T7, for sure it's Enhance. T8, in a hardcore guild, it would probably be Enhance. And the one thing about running double Enhance in like a less hardcore guild is like that guy can flex resto for like progression and stuff. So like you go from whatever, like 5 to 6 healers, 4 to 5 healers for progression, whatever. In a hardcore guild though, it seems like you're gonna run an Enhance unless there's a specific place where that Enhance needs to flex resto. But I think in most raids, if not every raid, the shaman is going to be Enhanced majority of the time. Maybe flex resto on a couple bosses here and there. It's tough to say. If there's like you know, some fight where that's needed, then that's what you'd probably do. But yeah.
To be fair,
I think the segues really good into the question that I hear the most often is how is enhancement later on the expansion? Does it just completely fall off? That is the question that I hear the most. And I want to say that like there's like this huge negative perception that like in Nax it's like god tier and then in Uldar it's shit. But like it's going to be a strong class all throughout the entire expansion. Like an ICC doesn't scale as good as Warrior in Mage, but what class does, right? So it's going to be strong the whole expansion. People compare it to private server stuff, but we have some mechanics that are on Classic that are going to make it stronger. Lightning Bolt Weaving and the ICD of Flurry is going to carry it, I would say, in later phases.
You didn't talk too much, by the way, about the ICD of Flurry. Maybe let me ask you guys, the other two of you guys, like Jroo, how do you feel Enhanced looks towards the later phases? I know you haven't played all of the later phases, but you've kind of like looked at the gear and stuff, as well as Rug. So Jroo, how do you feel towards it Enhanced as we go on through this expansion?
I think in terms of like where it's going to place on a DPS meter, it's probably only downhill, right? Because right now, realistically, gear, everything on an equal scale enhances like at least top 3 overall, probably, if not number 1 potentially. Like really, I feel like the only classes that would be competing are Demo or Spec, I guess. I think, yeah, I mean, I agree with Ouro's take. Flurry ICD is gonna carry it for sure a little bit. Weaving is also like another added bonus. I would assume that with the addition of like just a better client and everything, right? Like that helps out Enhanced too, just because you're pressing a lot of buttons, and like Fire Rally Snapshot's another thing where if I had to guess, I would assume that like on Wrath Classic, you're gonna get more use out of that than private servers. Not that private server players suck. It's just I know for sure when I not that I've played on private servers, but when I potentially did, it just feels a bit more clunky. So you might notice some out of that. But I think like kind of
not like that I played there.
Yeah, not that I did. But yeah, I think like in T7 we kind of talked about you're not going to stack enhances in T7. If you're not going to stack enhances in T7, you're not going to stack them in any other tier. But I still think that in a hardcore guild, you're going to bring one, especially if it's like that one guy. Like if you have an Ouro in your raid, like what are you going to do? Tell him to re-roll? Like no shot, right? Like so.
And you still
Something
need
make up
a
for the
shaman.
haste.
You
Yeah,
literally
something make up
need
for
a
that haste
shaman.
totem.
Yeah,
Haste totem must have.
yeah, of course you obviously need you need one shaman, and it's pretty much going to be enhanced.
Mm.
They're going to probably fall a little bit in the DPS meters, right? Warrior, mage, AF with longer fights and probably better scaling than enhance is obviously going to start to scale immensely as well. So there's going to be classes that do better than it, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, like if you're really concerned about it, just re-roll when you get there, because Wrath is such an alt-friendly expansion that, in my opinion, you should just live in the present, right? Like I'm gonna live in the present. I'm gonna play Enhance.
Good.
If the time comes and I have to re-roll or whatever it happens to be, I'll do it. But I'm just gonna stick Enhance probably for the whole expansion. I mean, it's just too fun. At least that's how it feels now. So
That's a great motto. Great advice. I think what's weird about this conversation about the evolution and the viability of Enhance, stacking it, whatever the case may be, the conversation that where it leads to later in the game, weirdly enough, revolves around your 5th healer spot. Is it a Resto Shaman or is it a Holy Priest? And like the fact that Enhance is roped into that conversation is funny to me, because it's really all about like, how many shamans do you want to run? You have to run at least one. Are you running a Holy Priest? If so, yes, then your only other shaman in your raid should be just one Enhance. If you are running a Resto Shaman in your healer group, do you want to bring a second shaman? That's the question that's then posed. And I'm always saying, yes, bring a second shaman. I'm a big fan of having, added coverage for spell haste totem, so that the range on it and radius on it is like wider. Also having like a nature resist totem available without sacrificing a hunter aspect, or without sacrificing spell haste totem uptime or anything like that. I think that's valuable, but late into the expansion, it gets to be just interesting, like what you do with that token shaman roll, or even like your token enhance and how they roll. But yeah, really, Jroo, I love what you said. I think living in the present is chef's kiss.
Well,
I think one good thing you brought up just quickly is the Wrath of Air uptime. In Nax, it's not a big problem at all, but there's going to be fights in Ulduar. Like I haven't really done Ulduar, but from watching videos and everything, there's going to be times where you're hard pressed to get that Wrath of Air totem within 30 yards of your casters. And if you have a 20% uptime on Wrath of Air on your casters, like first your casters are going to be pissed. Second off, then that's probably when you at least have to debate bringing a Resto Shaman or get your Enhance to just, I guess, like play better. But like realistically,
weave out to drop a totem further away.
I mean, so they're 5 minutes. Like there's probably scenarios where like you can manage it, and it's tough to say without like talking about a specific boss fight. But overall, yeah, I think like if Wrath of Air totem uptime is not great, then we'll have to get there, and we'll have to discuss what the solution is to that. Do they just live without it? Do they bring in the Resto Shaman and keep the Enhance? So both. So like you have much better coverage. Is that worth it for just 5% spell haste to bring 2 shamans if Enhance isn't as great as other classes, but it still seems pretty good? So it's tough to say. I think we just kind of have to wait and see what it looks like when we get there.
That brings up the perfect point of like the utility that you bring from as a shaman in general, and also as an enhanced shaman. So like, how important are the buffs that an enhanced shaman brings in general? Obviously you need a shaman, right? So
utility in general too, not just buffs.
Yeah.
Like, go over shaman, you're a utility that you bring.
So we definitely have the best strength of earth in the game, or the best strength agility. Also, but if it's only specifically enhancement buffs, that's really the only thing, right? Because everything else is not unique.
Okay, then shaman in general, hit me.
Oh, so shaman in general?
Yeah, what utility does shaman bring to the raid?
Bloodlust, purge, cleansing totem, kicks, spell haste, 10% attack power, but other classes bring it. Am I missing anything? But those are the ones that I can think of offhand.
I wasn't quite paying attention to your list, but probably, yeah. Did you mention Wind Fury? Technically, like if you don't have a Frost DK, but yeah, I think like the realistically, the significant things that you would bring an Enhance for in a 25-man environment is going to be Lust, Strength of Air, and Wrath of Air. Everything else is nice in 10-mans and stuff, and is for sure worth talking about. But yeah, for 25-man, that's probably the main 3 things.
How much more powerful is the Strength of Earth totem than than a Death Knight Horn of Winter?
15%.
15%. Yeah. Yeah. So those are like that's unique buffs though. Those, and then also the Shaman, right? Yeah, the haste.
Well, the Strength of Earth Totem is not technically unique to Enhance. A Resto Shaman could bring that same buff.
Yep, absolutely. It's really high up in the enhanced tree. It's like the first 3 points.
It comes out
okay.
to an extra 23.25 strength and agility each. If I believe, anyways, that's like before kings and everything.
Kings,
but if you
and
just
yeah.
take the extra 15% from the totem, yeah, 23.25
of each. Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yo, what is Crix laughing at, dude?
I'm just
what
talking
is this,
chat
what is this
while you
chat
guys
up,
are
dude?
fucking-
What is this
Chat is
Hey,
all
chat being
progress.
right now, dude?
It's
Don't
all
worry about chat
progress.
right now.
Right now,
We're
dude.
vibing, bro. We're just some casters vibing. You guys keep talking, okay?
Yeah, it's just it's all of the progress casters.
Don't worry, he always does this every podcast.
I fucking love you guys.
Yeah.
You guys make my day.
Yeah. Okay, so I've touched on this a couple times, and I really want you guys to break down what it means, but because I know the spec doesn't necessarily change, but Spellhance Shaman, what is it? Why is it viable? Why is it important? Why could it potentially still be viable later on, even though single target might win over if you were going normal enhance?
Can you actually just before that talk about the difference with Spellhance and Enhance? Because if I go anywhere else, people you got a camp. You have 2 camps of people: people who like the word Spellhance, and then you have the other people who fucking hate it.
Yeah,
and they fucking can't stand it, and it's called Enhance. Can you you know what I mean?
I'll give my opinion really quick in like 2 sentences, and then I want to hear what Ouro has to say because I'd be interested. I personally think Spellhance is just like the kebabs of Arms Warrior if kebab played the same as two-handed arms. So to me, it's essentially just semantics. Like it's like to me, like if like I'll go in the Shaman Discord, people ask like, "What's the difference?" Like if you ask that in the Shaman Discord, you will literally get barked at. Like they will literally bite you through the monitor if you ask.
That's why
that,
I
right?
asked, because every time you go in there, they're flick out about it.
There's literally, at least as of right now, no difference rotationally. It's just gearing, right? It's just gearing. It's the kebab. To me, it's kebabs of Arm Warrior if kebab and two-handed play the exact same.
What are you gearing to make it different?
The difference would be
what's making
double
it good
Flame Tongue
Spellhance?
instead of Wind Fury, and then Spell Power Gear would be the difference.
Okay.
Like Dying Curse would be like a Spellhance thing, right? Like conventionally, and then like your
how does
Meteorite and Mirror Truth would be like regular Enhance, I guess if you want to call it that. But
with before gearing or anything else, with the playstyle being technically the same though, fundamentally, just even thinking about it being different because a lot of your damage comes from different things. Can you touch on that, Ouro?
Can you repeat the question?
So the playstyle is the exact same as normal enhance, at least, especially in phase 1, but in general. But a lot of your damage comes from different places if you are running more spell damage than all physical. But correct me if I'm wrong there, but so like a lot more from your AoE damage and such. And I think that's something that confuses a lot of people on just the semantics of the name Spellhance.
Yeah, so when it comes to Spellhance, let me just start by saying, like, the reason why it's defined that way is because normally what people ran on original Wrath of the Lich King was always Wind Fury main hand, Flame Tongue offhand with the current talents. The talents weren't the same at the very beginning, but that's what was quote-unquote normal. However, on private servers, it was found out after running it over and over and over again that at certain points in the game, running Flame Tongue on the main hand with 1 or more or 0 or more on top of that spell power pieces made sense. However, now because it's such a dominant spec, what is quote-unquote normal is Spellhance in tier 7. So I think that's the reason why there's a bunch of people saying it's the same thing, but like historically speaking, it's not. Like if you went back in time, it was 100% different. People were not running Flame Tongue main hands in original Wrath of the Lich King. So that's, I would say, the source of some frustration. People think it's the same thing. Right now it might be, but that's only because Spellhance is so dominant.
Oh, go ahead.
Philosophically, I'm kind of in the camp that it is the same thing. I don't think like there's enough change between the two to warrant like a name change. Like it's the same talents, same rotation. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be the same glyphs. It's the same gymming. It's the same enchants. It's just changing from Wind Fury main hand to Flame Tongue main hand, and a couple off pieces. We're talking like neck ring, belt bracers, things like that. Maybe a trinket here or there, depending
That's
on the
5
server.
pieces you just named. That's more than a couple.
I mean,
That's- That's like just some random gear. Like that's just saying like, oh, this item is a gear upgrade for me. Like
it's extremely
that's
dependent on
normal.
like it's extremely dependent on drops, right? Like it's tough
Yeah.
to have a line between what's enhanced and what's Spellhance. Like let's say you get super unlucky, and this is just the first sample that popped in my head. Let's say you get super unlucky farming trinkets, and you don't have Meteorite Whetstone going into Nax, right? And you get Dying Curse to drop, but for some reason you're like Wind Fury, Flame Tongue, you're probably still going to take Dying Curse, right? Like essentially you're just playing off your drops. And so to me, that's why it's kind of like I'm not sure that I just don't even care. Like to me, anybody that freaks out about like enhance versus Spellhance, like we get what you're trying to say. Like there's like I'm fine with people asking the question and everything. I just don't understand. I don't really get the spurging that goes on when like
the people spurg
one or
on
the other
any
gets-
extra name. Who cares if someone wants to put a name on something? It's so stupid.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree with that 100%. Like, you're not going to have a Spellhance podcast
killing.
and then a Spellhance, what's it called, deep dive, and then an enhance. Like,
I think it's
they're
just
exactly
people
the
with too
same
much
It's
time
the
in their
same.
hands. I think it's
They're
just people
exactly
looking
the
for
same
any
thing.
reason to flame some kind of content creator about something.
Yeah, the
Whatever
only
it is.
reason why I brought it up was why they were called different things
No.
historically, right? Like,
Yeah.
they were, like, if you looked at it in Wrath, no one was running a Flame Tongue main hand. So, like, calling it something different kind of makes sense to me. It reduces the number of words that you have to say. So that's why I liked it normally. Like, people would say, what are you running? Like, running Spellhance, it kind of, like, just made sense
Yeah, it
instantly.
spices it up a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
sir.
like it causes but it has caused so much confusion that I almost don't like the term anymore because of, just
Exactly.
everything that's
I'm just an enhanced shaman, okay?
Yeah,
What about the
essentially.
do you need some certain gear before you can just
Yeah,
do
what are the
whole
pieces?
Spellhance, or can you just walk in there, you're aiming that gear previous wise, which I guess gearing's next, we can go into it in a little second, but like do you need certain stuff to be able to pull all that off with the Flame Tongue, or are you able to just do that right away?
Bro, that's just what we've been saying. There's no difference. It's all
Like
the same.
gear?
I mean, like, if you look at an item and it has attack power on it, and you look at another item that has spell power on it, like, let's say we're looking at Prebis rings or something.
Yes.
There isn't like a moment where I'm like, oh, this ring is going to cause me to put on Flame Tongue on my main hand and be a Spellhance in this moment. It's just like, this item gives me more value than this one. I'm still going to do Spellhance shit. Like,
So
it's all the same.
I think more importantly, or more of my question, and maybe Crix's, is like, which are the pieces that you want to ideally have the spell power so that they can help you with your things like your Fire Nova and your overall, your Flame Tongue? Which are the pieces, and I think Jroo touched on them really quickly beforehand, but which are like the pieces that are easy to choose to go with spell power items? And even though an item could be relatively the same, like this one could be an attack power ring and this one was a spell power ring, like what one would be a good choice to go for a spell power ring so that it would help you with overall damage? It won't change your play style, obviously.
Yeah, so I think it's just a combination of like using the sim and trying to figure out like to me the example I think of when you talk about this is the Dalaran rings, plural. So for me, like week 1 or my Prebis is going to be double Dalaran ring. That's 1 fizz and 1 caster. Like one ring that I'm not going to go for is like, I mean, not that it's a bad ring. It's just like, if I'm going to spend the gold, I'm going to get the double Dalaran rings. Is like, I'm not going to go for like hemorrhaging circle. It's tough to kind of draw a line between like, it's kind of what is the better item. I guess as far as weapon is concerned, that's like the one thing where it's like, I guess it's not as dependent on just like solely comparing like EP and simming it. The weapon speed of the main hand matters, right? Because you ideally want 2 weapons that are going to be syncable, right? So that means same speed or within 0.1, 0.2 is not ideal. You probably want 0.1 or same speed, and you also want a slow main hand. So like Wraith Strike off of my Exna is 2.6, and then you can use a 2.6 offhand with that or a 2.5 offhand with that. You can weave, you can sync your weapons. And it's like it's also just statistically, it's just an insanely good weapon, right?
So strong. Yeah, that weapon is crazy.
And
that's why I was chasing
in terms of-
Ouro in the heroics, because he was using fucking Wraith Strike, and I was like, all right, I have to go on my hunter now.
Then obviously, like the second that you add another target into the equation, like spell power only gains it just gains significant value, right? So that's why like it's tough to justify physical enhance, as well as just pure single target. It does not. There's no argument I see to where you would run like Calamity's Grasp main hand instead of Wraith Strike. In T8, it's kind of early, but like I guess one thing that people maybe think about is like Valenier. Is that a Val weapon for enhance? Potentially. The only downside really is that one, obviously it's a healer weapon. Two, it doesn't have like the pure offensive stats that some other weapons have, and then three is it's a 1.8. Crix, what is that face
That's
throw? Come on.
so
Valenier,
fast.
start the cap, dog.
That is so fast.
It's a
Fucking
1.8
cap.
second. It's 1.8 seconds. So like you're not going to be realistically like weaving with that. Listen, I may have to get to the point where you make the argument, right? But yeah, I just figured I'd throw that out there. Like a fast, like you obviously want a slow weapon for syncing for PPM as well, because a lot of your abilities scale off PPM, which favors slow weapons and then weaving.
So.
Right. I think you brought up a really good point when you were talking about like the spell power on the weapon. I just want to touch on real quickly, just like an info blurb really and soapbox. But the way that itemization works with spell power weapons is anytime an item has spell power on it, it's either like a staff, like a two-hander, or it's a one-hander that says main hand. There's no such thing as a spell power item that is a one-hand equip.
Oh, is that why it's always in your main hand usually?
Right. So
I hadn't put that together. I was going to ask that.
It works out so that a main hand, like a one-hander, like a main hand spell power weapon, is to be paired with an offhand, like a book or a little globe that you're holding, so that the spell power between those two can match up in value to a two-hand, like a staff. So because there's no such thing as a one-hand spell power weapon, we're never going to have a spell power weapon in our offhand. And that also means that the value of the spell power, just the number value of the spell power in that main hand, is extremely, extremely high for a class like a Spellhance, because we're essentially like double dipping. Because we're not having like an offhand that is like crap itemized, like a just like a caster offhand. It's a full-on offhand weapon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As long as you're not touching Turning Tide, I don't care.
I don't think.
Jroo?
Well, what were Ouro's thoughts on like the main hand stuff that we kind of talked about?
So the question was, what are the easy pieces to get that have spell power in tier 7? I think the first one that comes to mind is the EoE neck. EoE neck is just the best item that you can get for Shaman in tier 7. You can make arguments on the cape. There's two really, really good capes, but Pennant Cape is something that's really solid. Dying Curse, in my opinion, is unquestionably the best trinket for Shaman if you're snapshotting. If you're not, then it's not as good. But in terms of like getting a Valenier or whatever, that's just probably unrealistic. In a perfect world, like I have one and I could use it for fire release snapshotting, but I'm not as delusional to think that's actually going to be a reality. And in terms of like not being able to lightning bolt weave or making it extremely hard, and on top of the point that you said with Maelstrom generation being worse with faster weapons is something to take into consideration as well. But yeah, Valenier is probably not going to happen for 99% of people. It might be like one memeing person who gets it from a GDKP, but besides that, yeah, most people aren't going to get it.
Is Maelstrom weapon PPM?
You can convert between the two. You can convert between PPM and PPH.
Wow.
Like PPH for Maelstrom would be weapon speed divided by 60 divided by 10. So whatever the weapon speed is, say 2.6 divided by 60 divided by 10.
Do you want, in pre-gearing, and we can even look at Prebis now, I don't know if you guys sent through a Prebis guide, but like in pre-gearing also, is there like any times where you're looking at like, well, maybe this weapon is so much more solid, it's a physical weapon instead of still having a spell power main hand, because weapons have so much spell power compared to like normal items, right?
Link at 70 and 80s if you have it too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, if anyone has.
I don't know how WoW is you got with the Enhanced Shamans.
So for when it comes to pre-patch at level 70, the damage profiles of spell power weapons are atrocious. You can, like, if you look at the DPS of something like a Sunflare, it's the same DPS as like a Thrash Blade. It's not like that in Wrath of the Lich King. The first like spell power weapon that you can get that has decent DPS on it, I believe, is the one from Amphitheater. So using it on single target is something that I just don't do and don't advocate anyone does for level 70 content. The only time I really use spell power is on trash. Like I'll use a full spell power crit set on trash and it does disgusting damage in like Hyjal and any sort of like trash on Sunwell.
I saw you with a Sunflare. Don't you have a Sun?
Yeah, my guild got so lucky with them. I got like the 10th Sunflare. We got like 3 in a row and I finally got one. Yeah.
I was watching that. I was like, what the fuck is going on right now?
I got told I wasn't going to get it. Yeah, I was told I wasn't going to get it. And then we just literally got like 4 in a row. So I ended up getting it because no other mains needed it. So it's kind of sweet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we're talking about gearing, and you started with pre-patch gearing, and I was thinking maybe I said pre-patch. I was thinking pre-bis, but let's get into pre-patch first then, because that's perfect. What are the things in pre-patch, if we're just covering all gearing, pre-patch right now to look at, gearing wise, or just things in general about pre-patch to know for people? Because obviously, I guess then that means not really weapons for single target. Is there anything else people need to know right now or look at getting right now? That will be really nice for them.
So one piece of gear that I think most shamans should get for single target damage is tier 6 shoulders. Those shoulders are so disgusting when you're using 3-piece tier 6 for like the belt, the boots, and the bracers. They activate a 70 attack power bonus when you storm strike. So you essentially how it's different from where it was in TBC. You want to stack attack power essentially, and not go so hard on the armor penetration, in my opinion. I go with mostly attack power haste gear.
Anyone
so like
else?
Starstalker versus like the leggings of Immortal Knight, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think AP is really important. I think for like leveling, I know this isn't really pre-patch. For pre-patch, I agree. For leveling, I think, you obviously gain a lot of value with spell power and everything. Like Sunflare becomes for sure usable in dungeon leveling. I think Ouro pretty much like said that in terms of like, Hyjal trash, etc. One thing to monitor is just attack power, right? Again, Shaman Rage is relying on having a lot of attack power. So you don't want to gem, you don't want to have like full spell power gear for like your theoretical leveling set. But you do want to make sure you have some spell power. A lot of AP is really good, obviously, because AP converts 30% of it's going to convert to spell power. So it's important. Also, I guess one thing as well is the LE tier is like legitimately, in my opinion, for leveling as well, is legitimately usable. So for whatever that's worth, I forget if it's the 2 set or the 4 set that gives like the thing when you have all 4 totems down. But even just
That's
like
the 2 set.
The 2 set, but just even like item for item, one thing about the enhanced tier is if depending on what trinkets you have, like right now my shaman's probably going to have like Shard of Contempt and Berserker's Call, so I'm like omega over expertise cap, especially if we're talking about like mobs that are going to be like 71, 72, and even when you get higher up, I'm probably still going to be over the expertise cap for those mobs. And like you're not always going to be attacking from the back, but like you probably will be attacking from the back for the most of the time. So anyways, those 3 tier pieces obviously have expertise, so it is, the LE tier is legitimately good. It's itemized well. The one concern would be if you gear too much spell power, you don't have enough AP to get mana back from Shaman Rage, and then you're just mana starved, and you're just like working from behind the whole dungeon, and it doesn't work well. But if you can make it work, then I think those pieces are pretty good.
Yeah, I on my enhance right now on TBC, I have both 4-piece LE and 4-piece enhance, all on the same set. And I don't know if that's like very optimal. It's just something I wanted to do, and I thought it'd be fun, so I threw it together, and like that's the set I have. I'm having a blast with it. Like, I think Jroo makes a really good point about like how good is it actually. Like, I don't know, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So in terms of leveling, I think it depends upon how you're leveling. I would argue actually the opposite when it comes to dungeon farming. In dungeon farming, I have had extreme success on different multiple gear levels. I leveled up, I think, like 3 shaman on the beta just to test different things out. And I was in like dungeon blues, running nothing but spell power crit, and I was out DPSing warlocks in my guild that had Sunwell Plateau gear, just running this Fire Nova build. I did not go into Feral Spirits. I just went down to Shamanistic Rage for mana regeneration, and then I went and got Improved Fire Nova, and it was insane damage, even in blues, and it also works. It scales extremely well with spell power, and that's how I'm going to be leveling up personally.
This is the
yeah,
spec you sent through, right? This one right here.
That's not the one. That's for 80.
80. Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, I have a spec for it. But yes, I should have said that. I also am in full agreement for sure. You're definitely going for improved Fire Nova. Elemental Focus you might take as well. I'm not too sure. Let me find the spec. But yeah, I mean, I would agree. You're probably not taking Maelstrom stack because it's not Maelstrom up in a Feral Spirit because it's in a dungeon. It's like, oh, it's nice, but it's obviously, look at that. I mean, that talent is just like so busted. So
The Fire Nova one.
yeah.
Yeah. 20% reduces cooldown by 4 seconds. It is in dungeon. Yeah, I guess I never even tried it at level 60 or 70. So that would be.
It's really good for leveling too. Like not just like 70 to 80. I mean, like from 1 to 80. You know, back on those servers that Blizzard doesn't like when we had RDF, it was great to get like a buddy of 5 together and like just spam dungeons nonstop from 15 all the way to 80. And going that far into Elemental, like as your priority to get the reduced cooldown on Fire Nova plus the Fire Nova Glyph was awesome. Like that made Shaman probably the best AoE class in the game for dungeon cleaves, like low level dungeon cleaves, which was really, really fun. You're up there with, your mages in terms of viability for how much damage you're doing low level, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is the Elemental Fury on top of that. It makes it so your crits are doing twice as much damage.
Oh, all of these. Yeah. Oh my God. That is actually crazy. That's for overall this is huge.
Essentially you're getting all the mana regeneration, and on top of that you're getting an offhand that you could put Flame Tongue on to increase your spell power even more, and then getting everything that you need for AoE damage from the Elite Tree.
Mm-hmm. So this is the build you guys would do while dungeon leveling. If you're leveling solo, would you run this build as well, or would you just go straight down the enhanced tree into Maelstrom and Feral Spirit?
If I was just questing, I would go Feral Spirit. It's probably more fun for quests, unless you're like doing some like weird pulls where you're just pulling a ton of mobs and AoEing things down. I would go with Feral Spirits for sure for like killing 1-2 mobs at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with some
would
plateau gear. With some plateau gear,
You
you're gonna like
destroy
just
it.
one-shot things. So
is there any?
And I think the added movement speed from Feral Spirits, like at least off the top of my head, like Ugar Keep, that area where like you can't mount, right? Like Feral Spirits is very nice for that. So
Yeah. I was curious, is there any other cheeky items that could be of high prio outside of maybe your tier 3 set to tier 6 3 set to grab? Someone in chat mentioned an item, but I totally didn't write it down. I'm not sure if you did, Crix. But is there any other like cheeky items you should focus on grabbing now that'll help you out for leveling, or even help you out in sort of like a pre-bis situation?
I can't say what the item is because we have a bet going to see if they mention it.
Oh,
So there's a couple of things that are busted with Shaman right now. Fire Nova is not working appropriately. So like with this build that I'm running, the Fire Nova builds, Sextant theoretically should be really good for it, but Fire Nova's not proccing it. Same thing with like Dark Moon Card Crusade. Dark Moon Card Crusade, the spell power portion of it are not proccing. So what I've been running for that build was the Honor crit item. It gives you like 60 crit rating, and it's really, really good. Because in terms of itemization, you want to run a ton of crit with that sort of build, because you just want to get as many crits as possible with Fire Nova.
yeah, for me, I'm as far as leveling is concerned, I'm not like going super hard. Like I'm not quest pre-stacking or anything, so I haven't been going to raids like solely for gear for leveling. So it's kind of tough for me to comment on. I'm definitely not as versed in like the cheeky items compared to Ouro and probably other people.
Mm-hmm. So not too worried about it.
Someone said none of you guys mentioned the BOE from TBC as an offhand. It scales with spell power and does 4k damage on proc with 3 ppm.
Wait, what item?
Don't know. They didn't say the name. It's a BOE from TBC as an offhand BOE that scales with spell power and does 4k damage on proc with 3 ppm procs per minute.
See, that's the one, and I don't know what is it.
No idea.
Anyone in chat? Yeah, let's see.
It's an OG Enhance that's been in chat, saying that he was playing the same way you guys are now back in the day.
A weapon?
And still called it Enhance. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
What is the weapon called?
Hand
don't know off the
of
top-
is
I
it
don't-
Hand of Edward the Odd? Is that what?
Hand of Edward Odd.
Is that it?
That's the one that gives you instant cast, right?
Yeah, that's what you used to use in like at level 60, right? Yeah.
No shot.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he
yeah.
said it was a
Yeah.
TBC BOE.
Oh yeah. I don't know. We'll wait to see.
Reckoning.
It's not Fist of Reckoning, no. A weapon, TBC, BOE.
Yeah, Fist Reckoning wouldn't. That's like leveling. All right.
Sounds like a bait.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Well, that's everything to focus on for now, right? Like in pre-patch, and to know the two builds, right? If you're leveling in dungeons, to grab Fire Nova and Elemental Fury instead of grabbing Spirit Wolves. But if you're leveling solo, Maelstrom and Spirit Wolves speed is just so nice, dude. The speed from Spirit Wolves is so nice. So that's
it's good,
really
especially on a
good to
Healhance.
know. Let's look at oh my god, let's look at Prebis, right? Is this Prebis that you just sent through? Yes. Okay, let's look at Prebis, because I'm curious about the best ways to gear up right as you hit level 70 before the raids come out. What you have to spend money on, if you have to spend money. It's more of probably if someone's in a guild like you, Jroo, that's really necessary to spend money, because would you replace these rings?
I gotta double check. Is that cloak attainable? That cloak is attainable before Nax comes out, right?
Yeah, it
That's from
should be.
Lore Master.
So I believe all this stuff is attainable before Nax comes out. I
Mhm.
haven't spent like too much time coming down with a super proper set, only because again the sim is in the alpha. I don't want to spend 4 hours coming out with my set goals just for something in the sim to change, which it's been like kind of constantly changing. Not that like you should rely solely on the sim, but it just doesn't make complete sense for me to like. But this is probably what I'd go with right now about this. Obviously, it depends on the drops you get and everything, but you should be able to get most of this stuff. For sure. Is Titan Steel Guardian out on launch? I believe it is, right?
I believe so. Yeah, because I'm planning on getting and spending all my golds.
That's like, I want to say that's like almost by far your best weapon to go with. Except there's another one, but it's not as good. I forget the Titan Steel something else. But
Bone
that's for sure
Crusher.
the main hand. That's the main hand you should get. You should use that with Pride. That's double 2.5, so you're going to be able to sync properly with that, weave properly with that.
Mhm.
You're going to grab the 2-set. NG goggles are really good. The neck is really good. But I will say, like, there's a AP neck, I want to say, from badges that is like almost just as good or just as good. The only appeal for the spell power one would essentially be multi-target and snapshot. Cloak, same thing. There's another cloak as well that is like just as good. But again, like,
would you suggest
if we're
most
talking
people
about
then
snapshot.
grab the badge neck? Because
I
if
would
they're
say
not
yes. I would say
in
badge,
a very hardcore situation, like this is
for sure. I would
Mhm.
say, unless you're really trying to sweat for like those 100 parses week 1 or whatever it happens to be, and Ouro probably knows more about like the Prebis and the other options than I would, but I would say for sure just get the badge neck. The cloak, there's a blue cloak I want to say that's like pretty good as well. Shroud of Reverberation is an option. It's like an expertise one if you're looking to cap on expertise. That's like another option other than the crafted cloak if you don't want to spend a bunch on that. I would say get the weapon, to be honest, because it's really good. And unless you're relying on Wraith Strike dropping week 1 and you being the only enhance in the raid and getting it, which is a possibility, but if I was going to spend gold on one thing, that would probably be it. The rings as well, like, you could probably just go with a Hemorrhaging Circle. And then like one of the other blue rings, whichever one you're able to get. There's one with hit. I want to say, Mobius Band is pretty good. So those rings are like, I don't know if I would get those, but it kind of, I mean, it depends, right? But I can't speak on your specific gold amount, whoever, is taking advice from me for this Prebis, but yeah.
I think ring slot is a big opportunity for you to save some gold if you're not like trying to push like like some cutting edge level guild. Like you were saying,
because that's
just a couple of rings that you threw out,
17K.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a shitload, of course. I think Jroo offered some really good ring options. I just want to also throw out there Band of the Guile from Heroic, calling a Strat Home. Even the Exalted Ring from Argent Crusade is solid as well. There's a lot of really good ring options for Enhance.
Oh, did
Ring of
I
Scarlet
have it
Shadows is
messed
really
up, by the
good.
way? Did I have it flip flop, by the way? Is this the weapon that I meant is by far Abyss?
Yeah, the
And-
Spellblade is.
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry, yeah, it was the mace. That's the second one. That's okay. Okay, yeah. The
Ah.
dagger is
Why,
for sure
somebody
better.
asked, but why Spellblade over Guardian?
The haste and
Just
hit
the-
for sure.
Okay.
The haste and hit.
There's no haste.
Hit, sorry.
but-
hit,
but
thir-
yes.
hit 30, 53 crit, and Bone Crusher is. Let me look. Oh, not Bone Crusher, Guardian.
Yeah, those are the
I'm
two
used to
weapons that I get
thinking-
mixed up.
I'm used to thinking for my classes. Sorry. Crit is lower, and you don't get hit at all.
Another
But you do
thing-
have more spell power on Guardian. But Spellblade's still just significantly stronger because of the hit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Spellblade's definitely better. I just get those mixed up, so that's my bad. But yeah, Spellblade for sure. Auro's right.
Mm-hmm.
One big difference I have with the list that you're showing and the one that I would put out to the world
Can you
is
send me
the
yours, Rugs?
No, it's not worth it because that list is basically identical. Is I've always was under the assumption that Stonebreaker's Totem from TBC is actually your pre-raid Abyss, and the one that you have on that list is phenomenal. It's great. I have no issues with it whatsoever. But just quick throw out because we forgot to mention it, like just the segment before, is Stonebreaker's Totem, which is only 20 badges of justice that you can get right now in TBC, is phenomenal. Will last you for a very long time, all the way to 80. You could use it your first raid of Nax, like just a wonderful totem.
Oh, really easy too, because like, okay, with Totem of Elemental Plane, this one that you guys are both rocking, right? That gives you your Lightning Bolt can give you 196 haste. This is like really nice because you guys are weaving, right? Like Lightning Bolt weaving. But a lot of people, I would highly anticipate, won't right at the onset for the sake of people learning the class and the nuances of the class, just realistically, right? What do you guys think, Ouro and Jroo, about Stonebreaker Totem versus Elemental Plane?
So just a disclaimer with the pre-raid list, like that's just like a theoretical, like a lot of those pieces I won't even be going for because like this is just like the best gear that you can get from, outside of raids, right? So in terms of like saving gold, I probably would only get like the Titan Steel Spellblade. Something that should be said is Berserking is going to be extremely expensive to get just on that. Leveling up your professions, all that stuff is going to be expensive. So in terms of like the high value ones, like I might get Ring of Scarlet Shadows. Hit is going to be hard to get early on, and that's why Spellblade is really, really good. Like, Ring of Scarlet Shadows is 38 hit plus a socket, so it's a ton. And that's another reason why I went with Boots of Neverending Path that you can get from Argent Crusade Exalted. It's just a ton of hit, and it might be hard to come by.
How do you feel about that as well, Jroo?
I think it works for sure. If you're looking from an overall perspective, right? Like it's not ideal to have Hemo Circle. It's not bad. I think this is like fine. I think with Prebus, realistically, like it's all very, very close. And again, unless like you're really trying to go for like a rank 1 parse, like first week in Nax or whatever, you can kind of just work with what you get and then see what you get and sim it, right? That's like pretty much what I'm gonna do. Like I'm not gonna set a goal and like there might be an item that is like second or third pre-bis and I don't even realize it if I just have one set in front of me. I'm just gonna sim as I go, right? I think that's kind of just the play. So
your set is the most expensive set of all time, by the way.
Oh, it's super expensive.
You don't need greatness, but you've got double rings, 17,000 gold, right? Titan Steel, we're saying we're using Titan Steel dagger, right? Berserking. You've got like the necklace, titanium spell shock necklace. You've got the helm.
Chills of Fortune.
Death Chill cloak. I love it, and I'm about it, and I'm gonna have to drop like ridiculous amounts on my main. But it's
I guess like one thing to note about this set here is it's nowhere near expertise cap. So if that's something you're looking to do for whatever reason, this set is not going to get you near expertise cap. It'll get you to spell hit cap. It will not get you to expertise cap. Obviously, expertise cap is nice, but it's not. I think it's definitely not as good as like it was in TBC for multitude of reasons.
And then looking towards phase 1 base, how many of these items do you end up keeping anything? Everything looks like it's replaced, right? Oh, this is a juicy Orc Shaman.
Yeah, nothing goes into tier 8 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Except for potentially Meteorite Whetstone, right? Like, or no, into tier 7 from pre-bist, right? Then what I'm thinking is like from
pre-bist into tier 7. Yeah, Meteorite Whetstone is really, really strong.
Mm-hmm. The rest, what are some of the biggest pieces you mentioned before? This necklace, Ouro being a really large piece to go for early. Wraith Strike, obviously, I don't even know if you have to fight anyone for Wraith Strike. You
shouldn't have to. You really shouldn't. And if it goes to anything but an Enhancement Shaman, that's like just straight griefing. The thing to note with the neck is everyone's going to want that neck, so it might take a while to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, just disclaimer again, this is a theoretical list. It's not like I plan to get every single piece. I usually don't have this gear on my characters. It's just, you know, people like gear to aim for. So you kind of have to like go with what you get a lot of the time.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty accurate phase 1 list. So is you going with Meteorite over Mirror Truth just because Mirror Truth, Meteorite is just significantly better, even if you were to try to use the 1000 AP for an extra 300 spell power on Fire Alley? Or
I'm not a huge fan of Mirror Truth. I think I'm in the minority with that. Like, it requires you to get the crit to proc, and its uptime for me was atrociously bad. And even if I know the sim is in the beginning stage, but it sims better for me using Whetstone over Mirror Truth with my set. So that's the reason why I go for it.
Yeah, I had them simming it very close. I simmed like a bunch of different gear sets, but I had them simming pretty close. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I mean, I don't like completely disagree with Whetstone over Mirror Truth. Mm-hmm. So,
you mentioned just there that Mirror of Truth gives you like 300 spell power. Do you get 1/3 of your attack power converted into spell power?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, that's something I hadn't. There we go.
Yeah.
The talent called mental quickness.
Is there a world, Ouro, in which you would potentially not? So, like, obviously you're gemming until spell hit cap, but is there a world in which you would gem like AP over haste, do you think, or no?
So I think it depends on what your playstyle is. I think if you are lightning bolt weaving, it makes more sense to gem attack power, because lightning bolt does scale extremely well with spell power. But if you're just like sending like 5 maelstrom stacked lightning bolts, I think gemming haste. Everything is like nuanced. Like, it just depends on how you play in terms of what's ideal. But I don't have anything against gemming attack power. I think it makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I think Enhance is one of those classes where, just in general, in the difference between like a TBC to Wrath in terms of gymming, and TBC, getting those gym socket bonuses were actually really valuable. The gym socket bonuses and Wrath, not every time, but most of the time, the value from them is pretty crap. And a lot of classes gain so much from one individual stat. Like a DK gains like a ridiculous amount from strength.
2.7 times.
Ridiculous amount from like stacking intellect. So you just ignore socket bonus a lot of time. I think Enhance, maybe not in like a vacuum, but in a lot of cases, like there are socket bonuses that you can go for with an orange haste attack power gym that it just like works out well if that's what you wanted to do in some red sockets. Not saying that's the case every single time, but I think Enhance has good flexibility there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think generally, like, the difference between gemming, haste, AP, even like spell power, to be honest, like, is pretty small. So like whatever kind of just gives you, in your opinion and in the Sim's opinion, just like the best stat budget, like whatever gives you the most, I think is kind of what you go with. So.
And you said, Jerry, that you're focusing. Oh, go on, Ouro.
I was gonna say I can't wait for future phases for the sim to be a little bit more refined, because a lot of these questions are just going to get answered.
Yeah, I think, for sure. Yeah.
The good old like feels crafting, or like the old like private server sims that like always are like not perfect, you know? Yeah. So it's like right now it's like, I think this is the way. But Jroo, you mentioned you're gemming a lot of hit, right? Like you're going for like really high for like spell hit, right?
I'm gemming the same amount that Ouro is. So Ouro is at
Okay.
14.07% with Fairy Fire. Fairy Fire, that's going to go to 17. So he's going to be capped.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm a Drain Eye, so I'm going to get the 1%, obviously. But yeah, it's going to be pretty similar to that. So
Drain Eye also would go for an Angry Dread offhand instead of the Stray. Small difference there.
Angry Dread?
I like having same speed.
No,
for lightning bolt weaving.
Are you really though?
Really?
Because that's
Yeah.
I would
like
go Stray.
that's a Death Knight item right there.
Yeah, I'd go with the 2.6. That's just my preference, though. I know a lot of people like Angry Dread. If you just look at Angry Dread versus Stray in a vacuum, Angry Dread is better, right? For Draenei, I agree. But with Lightning Bolt Weaving, it just makes your life so much easier when you don't have to constantly reset your weapons.
Not against that logic. Not at all.
I think whichever one you can get easiest, you go for, which is probably Stray. Down the line,
100% Stray.
Yeah. Down the line, like going into Ulduar, everybody's got their Angry Dreads, and you've also like worked on Enhance, and now you feel pretty good, and you think that you can use, non-same speed. I would try it out. I think that's like a realistic play, is go get Stray early on, and then going into Ulduar, once you feel more confident with the class, pick up Angry Dread, and be able to resync as well as weave and play the class. So
What do you do to resync your weapons?
There's a macro that you can use that we've been using in TBC.
Yeah.
It's like /target player /target last target start attack, I believe it is. But right now, there's some tech coming out for keeping your weapons at the exact same speed. Like when you cast Feral Spirits, it will like reset your swing timer and make it so your weapons are hitting at the exact same time. Another thing is you could drink a Noggenfogger, and then there's like a weak aura that you can use that like takes off your relic and puts it back on. That also resets your swing timer. I don't know how worth it is. A lot of times I just use the macro. But yeah, those are the different ways.
yeah, I haven't played around with like Noggenfogger. Also, sorry, I kind of wasn't paying attention. Did you mention Feral Spirits as well? Technically,
Yeah, he just did. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think the macro is usually the best case scenario, but also, yeah, if you do use the macro and your weapons are slightly like still within 0.5 but not exactly on top of each other, then yeah, I mean, weaving becomes harder, and in some cases you might lose out on a weave, right, if they're not sitting at the exact same point. So if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially during Bloodlust, it's like really hard to weave with Lust in a lot of haste.
Yeah. That's where you get like very much like a melee weaving shaman or hunter with like a ton of haste and like Thoradol and Bloodlust. You're doing it so quickly in TBC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what like how people try to create AI or whatever auto hotkey mouse macro stuff. I don't know. I'll be super curious to see how that plays out though, because people are going to try to automate the weaving process.
Always do,
for sure, right?
dude.
We'll see
It's
if it
the
becomes
worst.
really good or if it's like kind of something that's just not possible. But I mean, I find it hard to believe that it's not going to be,
All the best shamans are just going to be a
I
one
really
button
hope
mouse
they
macro.
don't.
God damn it.
I really hope that they don't, to be honest. Like
So
that's
tilting.
something that I really enjoy doing and like working on. So like if it just becomes automated, like oh my god. It's like actually so cringe to have like something play the game for you, if you ask me. But that's just my opinion.
That's a good point. Like, I like your mentality, Ouro, of always wanting to like work on something. I think a lot of people in general with Enhance are maybe afraid of the skill ceiling with it. That it might turn them off from ever trying the class because there's so many things going on at once, and there's like such a gap for them to get to a level threshold that they feel comfortable saying like, oh yeah, I'm a good Enhance player. But I think the mentality of being like, there's always something to improve upon. I can always go back and like parse better. I could perform better. I could get more APM out. I could have prioritized this spell in that global than this spell. That's what makes like Enhance have so much depth and flavor and enjoyability and replayability. That's why people will like one trick it for so long, because it's got so much room for you to improve as a player. So don't be afraid out there if you're listening thinking like all this talk that we've been talking about for like the last hour is just like too much for you. Like use this as like motivator. This is like you get to like have this slate going into Wrath, like where you're about to play like one of the most complex classes in the game, and absolutely dump on people in the meters because you put in the effort.
What is
Yeah, I agree.
the
And the
difference
whole
between,
thing
like, a
too
good
is like
one?
you can 100% top meters even if you don't use a swing timer at all, or even resync your weapons. Like in
Yeah.
certain situations, like if you're competing with like top players on like Warlock and stuff, it might be hard. But like in most skills, I want to say you could not use any of this tech and still do extremely well.
Mhm.
Not weave, not use the swing timer, still do good. So
That's
it's
what
just
I was
something to
gonna
add to the
say.
list. Like perfect the fundamentals, and then you could add this later if you want to.
That it's so exciting to see that, like, there's all this tech that I didn't even like know about that like will add to the complexity of the class and like the min-maxingness of the class, but you don't absolutely need to do it, and it shouldn't push you away from playing the class. But then like once you're good and used to doing everything, you're just like, let me just add in my lightning bolt weaving, you know?
Yeah,
All
like
of
They
that.
in
also
my
have these things called training dummies, and they're located pretty much all the major cities, and you can literally sit in front of them for an hour or two, and you'll get it down.
an
You
example
just
that I
say,
can think
everything
of.
is practice, just practice. And there weren't dummies in TBC, so you literally couldn't practice unless you were doing dungeons, right?
Blasted
now you can
lands.
sit now you can sit in front of 4 fucking whatever training dummies for hours until you get used to it.
There was this one hunter in my guild who had really high ping because he was playing EU, and he could not like reliably melee weave because of the ping, and he still was like doing exceptionally high damage like all the
Oh,
time. Like
Denrock,
he was
or?
one of our best hunters. Yeah, Denrock, exactly.
Yeah,
And
Denrock was
yeah,
another
like
click too.
yeah, he's a gamer, and I think it's the same thing here. It's like you don't have to do it, and you could still do really really well.
You see the
Yeah.
Enhance where all they're doing is just pressing Fire Nova, and they're still doing extremely good damage. They're not doing anything extra. They're not adding anything extra. They're just like Fire Nova on cooldown and pumping, you know?
Easy.
Yeah. That's Blasted Lands too. Like now we have target dummies. We in my guild we have one of the best hunters, Afghan. He literally, like, whenever he gets a new weapon, like when he got Thordal, like probably spent 5 days in a row, like 8 hours a day in Blasted Lands, just perfecting weaves with like hunters or shamans out there to bloodlust to make sure all of the weaving timers are all perfect and stuff. Like just take advantage of the target dummies. It's so easy, but it's not fully a practical situation because obviously you'll get different like hasted things, but you have bloodlust yourself. Don't waste some. Go on the beta or PTR and waste like haste pots. Which actually I wanted to mention. Do you guys use wild magic to snapshot your fire ellie, or do you haste pot like as a pre-pot?
If I fire ellie, I use wild magic, but if I don't, I use haste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. I noticed it in a part of the VOD earlier, and I just wanted to touch on that really fast, and I just came back to me. I was like, all right.
That's a great question.
Ooh, one thing
Yeah.
I didn't think about, we didn't talk about professions at all in terms of snapshotting. Like, because everyone talks
Oh.
about how engineering and jewel
Jewel
crafting are
crafting?
the best. Yeah,
Yep.
and I agree. Like, jewel crafting is definitely the play for just practicality. But on one of my shamans, I'm 100% going tailoring just because I'm a big, like, snapshot enthusiast. Like, it's definitely probably not this. I think it's good for Nax because of the fight lengths. Like, 2-minute fight lengths with the proc. If you get it, it would be how much of a DPS increase? About 140 DPS for the tailoring proc. But just for fun, I'm gonna get it on one of my shamans. But generally speaking, jewel crafting and NG I think are unquestionably the best.
I might grab it on my troll DK just for the snapshotting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you guys? Do you guys agree with the professions?
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
I agree. I think NGJC for sure are best. I will also say, unless you consider yourself super sweaty, if you're like leaning leatherworking or you want to be an alchemist, like just be an alchemist. Like if you were to use those gems on AP, which you probably wouldn't, you probably use them on hit or something. Like the main bonus of JC is the flexibility, right?
Mhm.
Just if you were to just use those gems on AP, it's 28 attack power better than the other professions that give you 80 attack power. So like obviously it's nice, right? And the flexibility is what is nice about JC. But if you're not considering yourself the sweatiest of the sweatiest, then I would feel free to do something else, in my opinion. Anyways, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like unless you're getting like what's the horde buff, like the 30 attack power to undead buff, like unless you're getting that, like you know, you don't have to worry about professions like other than NG probably, but
Yeah,
Can you guys
engineering's-
explain? Can you explain snapshotting, please? You guys
I
in
do
your
it,
terms,
like,
what explain it
30
and
times a day.
when you people are still asking though. This is fine.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. Just explain how you guys explain it in your terms and shamans what you would be snapshotting in any situation.
So essentially, when you snapshot a fire LE or just in general, for LE specifically, you try to get your spell power as high as possible, and then you drop your totem for fire LE because you can drop below what that level was, and it maintains the value throughout the lifespan of the fire LE. So let's say you had 3,000 spell power when you dropped your fire LE. 2 minutes down the line, when your spell power is down to 2,000, it's still at that 3,000 mark.
Yeah. So, and for all classes throughout Wrath of the Lich King, for anyone that doesn't know or understand snapshotting, I'm literally this weekend making a full video just on it because I get asked so much. But realistically, what it is, it's huge, and most classes have something for it. But what it means is it takes whatever your stats are at the current time when you cast that spell. That spell does not adjust anything else. So like for a Death Knight, whenever your haste and your attack power, when you cast your gargoyle, when you summon your gargoyle, then your gargoyle will come out having been affected by the haste and attack power you already had on yourself. So like if you were to get a bloodlust after you used a gargoyle, it does not get affected by that at all. And that's why earlier Ouro was talking about how the spirit wolves you summon are dynamic. They will actually adjust in real time when you get new buffs. So they aren't just statically stuck to whatever happened or how buffed you were when you cast the actual spell. So that's why you usually want like bloodlust and stuff early. You pre-pot specifically for shamans. The wild magic potion gives you more spell power, and that translates directly towards the fire elemental totem. Do you snapshot with a full spell power set before? No. Could you summon your fire LE totem early with like a crazy spell power set, and then would it engage with? You don't have any control, right?
So in TBC, you could put on a full spell power set and do it, but practically speaking, I haven't had any situations where we're pulling to the totem, so it really isn't totally practical.
Yeah. So that is yeah, that's snapshotting, guys. Anyone have anything else to mention about snapshot? Crix has a warlock. You can explain it for warlocks.
Yeah, for warlocks and shadow priests, you have like shadow word pain for shadow priests, and you have corruption for warlocks, and both of them will snapshot your current critical strike rating and damage percent buffs like a curse of elements or a tricks of the trade or anything that kind of gives you that. And when you put it on the target, as long as that corruption is there or that shadow word pain, it will stay on the target the whole time because they have both of those specs have a talent that refreshes it via your rotation naturally refreshes that corruption, or if you're shadow priest, your rotation naturally refreshes that shadow word pain, so you get to really snap it. Less serious for the shadow priest because shadow word pain's like whatever, but
yeah, same thing for marksman hunter. There's quite a few, like a lot of classes have something, and I plan to cover all of it. But if you have like an ability that refreshes one of your dots and it keeps that dot up the whole time, you want that main dot to be the strongest version it can be also. So like outside of just like a summon pet, like a guardian or something, like a summon pet, not guardian, that would be the same case. So that's snapshotting. It is a new mechanic in Wrath, and it's one of the coolest ones to master.
It's a lot of fun. Snapshotting, I mean, from a warlock perspective, it's a lot of fun. I don't know how it is with it. We don't do it like kind of like with a pet snapshotting. Ours is like a main ability versus a DK needing like the gargoyle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What about that diamond flask snapshotting, taking all the healing gear?
Oh yeah. That was I remember seeing like Lottie like pay like 90k gold for like a healing mace from KT just to take it so he could solo tank what is it, Lotheb, without needing any heals. Yeah. So that's actually snapshotting, I guess technically has been in the game for a while, but it's a lot more important for a lot more classes now.
For sure. Yeah.
Moving on towards glyphs though, there's no like flexibility with glyphs, or is every single shaman using the exact same glyphs that you guys were telling me about earlier, because I know people are going to ask what glyphs to run. Oh, let me make this so that it's seeable. There you go.
I've played with some other glyphs. The 3 glyphs that are listed on the list are going to do the most damage in pretty much every single situation possible. But I can say at least just a couple glyph shoutouts. Our glyph of Lightning Shield is really strong. I've seen on some, servers that Blizzard doesn't like that it actually does more damage than doing like a glyph of Storm Strike. That would be the slot that I would replace it in. So Lightning Shield is really solid. Hell, like I know some people used to do Glyph of Fire Elemental Totem, which reduces the cooldown of 5 minutes, especially because you're not getting the reset on boss kills. It wasn't included in that group. Like, maybe you could make a case for that. I don't think that one's worth it at all, but, maybe. But for the most part, those 3 glyphs are, like, by far and away the best 3. Do you guys have anything else to add to that?
I think you covered it pretty well. The issue I would say with Storm Strike though is how we're casting so many more lightning bolts now if you're weaving. But if you're not weaving, then it doesn't become an issue. But yeah, like I think there's a world where if you're speed running or whatever, it might make sense to use the Fire League Glyph because, like you said, it doesn't actually reset, which is unfortunate.
It still works in the way that, like, if you did have a super spell power set and you were also pulling to the totem, I want to say it's, unless they fixed it or like patched it or whatever, you should still be able to use a spell power set, place the totem down, then swap the glyph, get the 5-minute cooldown instead of 10. Now again, would I ever do that? No. Should anybody else do that? Probably not, but I guess it's something worth noting. Right? I believe it still works that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned with Glyph of Storm Strike with weaving, how does it affect the lightning bolt weaving?
So you're getting more value out of it because you're hitting more lightning bolts.
Okay, so like it's just standard anyways, you're using it still, and it gets a little bit more value.
Yeah, because it increases your nature damage. So since you're casting more nature spells, it just gets a little bit more value.
So straight up, guys, Fire Nova is the juicy one. The 3-second reduction on your Fire Nova, that one's like, oh, so nice.
Yeah, that one's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And then Flame Tongue, will you use Glyph of Flame Tongue weapon if you were to ever move away from the traditional, now that what we think of Spellhance type thing? But if you move towards using a Wind Fury main hand, Flame Tongue offhand, would you still use Glyph of Flame Tongue weapon?
It's my understanding that you still would. However, I know that Glyph of Wind Fury weapon is decent and could have potential there, like way late into the game, but I still wouldn't. In fact, I think I would be drawn more to Glyph of Lightning Shield if I really had to swap anything.
Yeah, I think
Jroo? Yeah.
I would say if I was going to use Wind Fury Flame Tongue, I would not use Glyph of Flame Tongue weapon. I don't know. I think I would probably... These are the options. I think Feral Spirits is an option. I think Lightning Shield is an option. I think if you're weaving, even Lightning Bolt is an option. It's an extra 4% damage buff to Lightning Bolt. So it's not as fat as Storm Strike, which is actually like kind of weird if you think about it. But those are options. I would say this is a deep dive and it's kind of cringe to say this, but I'm kind of just holding off on having an opinion on it, because by the time we do get to like that territory, it would be at the very earliest T8 where you're going to be wearing like a physical main hand at the very earliest. And by then, I think there's just so many variables that could change, right? Like somebody could discover something new. The Sim's also just like going to continue to get better and better. Fire Ellie is going to be implemented and everything. I think it's a little early to say, but those are options. So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, ultimately for this question, since the sim isn't really at its final form, it's just, a guess. So I kind of agree with your reluctance to state one as definitively like the option to use with Wind Fury.
Yeah. So that's good to know that like we don't know 100%, but it looks like this. Oh my god, the Keck W's. Welcome everybody from Jokered's stream. We're doing the Enhanced Shaman deep dive. So, oh my god, chat's about to blow. Yeah, so that's looking at glyphs. You don't really change the glyphs, and these are, for the most part, if you were to change one, it would only be Storm Strike early on at least. And for now, that doesn't look like it because you're Lightning Bolt weaving, right? So it seems like this is kind of the play, right? If we look at then stat priority, we kind of touched on it earlier. Is there any stats you look at the most? I would assume hit. But is there any stat priority you look at the most? What do you guys go down on as you're looking to get all of your stats?
Yeah,
Anyone,
I mean,
take it away.
It's kind of a cop-out answer, but again, I kind of lean towards a sim. For bosses, I'm definitely gemming for spell hit cap. Then after that, it's probably like I'm kind of low on expertise. Like it's pretty good. It's not bad, but it's only great on single target. And even on single target, it's like marginally better than AP or spell power or, haste. And then the second, it doesn't have to be like overall. It could just be like a Nubricon or Fairlina. The second you add a second target in there, expertise just drops significantly in value compared to everything else. So I'd gem for spell hit cap. Then it's kind of like personal preference, right? Like without the sim, I don't want to keep repeating the sim is in its alpha state, but I would probably go spell hit cap, then AP. And that's probably what I'd do. Yeah.
Would you say that the sim is in the alpha state though?
Did you guys hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Go spell hit cap, and then I'm kind of a haste chill though. I can see myself going attack power, but I just like the haste.
What does
This
haste
feels really good.
affect for you that you really like? Does it affect
It's
your
just
GCD?
more fun. You can get down to a shorter GCD, but there's a limit to that. But it's just more fun to be swinging faster, if you ask me.
I'm all about that, dude.
Haste is super good for enhance. I really like what you're saying, how you're a shill for Meteorite Whetstone and you're a shill for stacking haste gems, because that's how I build it too. I personally try to hit 26 expertise cap, but I think Jroo makes really good points. It's probably one of those situations where, similar to like a warrior or like a Frost DK, putting the like gem of expertise in your gear is less value than just doing your main stat. And so for this situation, you're probably just better off going haste rather than expertise in those, unique gym decisions, is what I would do.
Would you ever just swap a ring for boss fights, for single target boss fights then? For like throw on some expertise, hit expertise cap, but like most of the time on trash, you just like literally every other time you're just keeping it off?
Yeah, I mean that kind of sounds like what Ouro's 2 sets were, like that you mentioned earlier. It's basically the same ideology.
Even on a single target boss fight, in my opinion, I don't think expertise cap is necessarily worth reaching all the time. Like it depends on what you have and everything, but there to me are definitely legitimate sets where I would not gem for expertise cap, and I would be like quite below it, honestly. Again, it depends on a lot of variables, but on the beta, I had a lot of success single target without expertise cap, and you definitely like notice it, right, compared to being expertise capped. But the additional AP or whatever it happens to be, right, is either you're gonna get a lot more haste, or you're gonna get more AP, which helps your fire rally, which helps Sham Rage, which helps so many other things. So
yeah, and AP turning into spell power is always like nice, like in general. So like just having more and more AP seems so powerful.
Yeah.
A worthy thing to note too is when it comes to enchants, there's the question of do you go AP or go spell power, and I think Jroo agrees with me where you go AP because of the conversion.
On weapons like with Berserking, or are you thinking everywhere?
So like for like your bracers, your shoulders, your helmet, you can there's a choice between spell power and attack power, and generally speaking, it's better to go attack power.
Yeah. So then do you prioritize attack power over spell power in most situations? Or is it just...
To me, my fine line is like, if I can get more than 0.65 spell power per AP, then that's about where you could justify taking the spell power over the AP, if that makes sense. I don't know. That's kind of like that's kind of the line I've like created in my head. That's about the line where the spell power to attack power is like on a flask. Like to me, like I don't even think it's a significant single target damage loss to just use a spell power flask. I would, yeah. So that's kind of about the line where I draw for.
Do you think you as min-maxing, right? Like, so I know Ouro is going to be snapshotting with the spell power flask, and then swapping onto an attack power flask, right? You, Jroo, would you be doing the same, or would you suggest for a lot of people that are maybe taking it less min-maxy, because that obviously will add up some in cost, let's be right, to just go with, what would you prefer, a spell power flask or an attack power flask? If you were just like through the raid.
If I could only have one,
yeah,
I would go spell power. But I think it's very small. I think it's super negligible. I would probably just flip a coin, to be honest. I think you could go either or. There's obviously snapshot benefits to the spell power, as well as if you're weaving, you're going to get extra benefits out of that if you don't have weaving enabled on the sim, you won't necessarily see. But if you do have it enabled on the sim, it's going to play like a robot. You might get more weaves, and and then with the attack
humanly
power,
possible.
Sham Rage is always Sham Rage with attack powers is going to be something to know until you get to the point where you're getting a full mana bar mana back no matter what, which still right now is not the case. So
Sham Rage, does it scale solely on attack power?
Yeah.
So that's large on overall, because mana is a thing. Do you guys notice yourselves ever using mana potions throughout raids? I definitely did in dungeon farms, especially if you didn't have something like replenishment. But I also was not perfect with Shamanistic Rage. So do you guys, as enhanced, basically pros, use
so when it
mana
comes
pots?
to on boss fights, I always use haste. I never have mana problems on boss fights, and generally in raids, it's not a problem. There are some niche situations where if you don't get levitate over, like when you're going over the slime, it cuts your mana down to like 30% or whatever, and you can start having some mana problems. One thing I'll say about the dungeons, though, is I have two different builds, one for raids and then one for dungeons specifically. I don't use Lightning Shield really in dungeons at all. I'm always using Water Shield because of the mana issue. We don't really drink ever. It's always pressing W. And on top of that, too, you're not guaranteed to have a Blood DK or a Frost DK giving you the crit buff. Right, or not the crit, the haste buff. So you might have to take the improved Wind Fury. So,
yeah, I fully agree. Water Shield in dungeons in 99% of cases, if not 100% for sure.
Yeah, and then you're using that's something we haven't really talked on as much. But the totems, we mentioned it earlier, what totems to use, but realistically, you're not really using Wind Fury Totem now. There's the change in Wind Fury Totem. It's no longer like gives an extra swing. It's now haste, like melee haste, correct? And it's 16%, or is it 20 exactly? Is it the same as Frost DK?
It's 16. You can get it up to 20 if you talent for it.
And so then you're basically not using these Wind Fury Totem in raid like 90% of the time. It'd be rare even in a 10-man, right?
Yeah, you're basically never doing it.
Yeah.
Gotta yell at the DKs to go improve Icy Talons. Let's be honest.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Even unholy DKs, even dual unholy DKs have your Icy Talon. Well, for yourself.
Yeah, not for the raid.
I was like, wait, yeah, actually, no. Like, wait, no, I have that for me.
We were doing the raids on the beta, and I know that Ouro's just smacking my ass, and I know that his mana's bad, so I'd like perfectly be like, no, I'm gonna pull the next mob. You're not sitting down, you piece of shit.
That's how you try to get ahead.
I had to do what you got to do, bro. I'm a hustler.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Like, he's dead and still #1 over here.
Oh, so mad.
It's just kind of insane, like how much value you get for your mana management just from being surrounded by a bunch of different people. Like having more haste, so that you're attacking more during your shamanistic rage. Like having Judgment of Wisdom up. Having like multiple sources of people providing replenishments. When your healers are doing like maybe a mana hymn, maybe you're getting a tick of that or something. Like there's just so much more happening. Like hell, even just Judgment of Wisdom, that alone like is game changing for Enhance with really low levels of gear. So it's kind of nuts.
Are there other classes? I think Enhance is one of the ones that like specifically takes from this the most. Also, like hunters. Hunters are really like mana dependent on trash. Like it is vital that you're using basically like serpents or not serpents, viper sting whenever you can, and it massively like affects your overall damage. Are there other classes, and like what are ways to manage that well as an enhanced shaman for yourself? If you would say, like, is there a way for someone that's newer to the class to manage that? Because if you're new, you're probably gonna run low on mana, right?
Right.
I think the biggest mistake that I've seen is people using Shamanistic Rage like they used it in TBC. People wait until they're to use it, where I would say that you should use it on like your first empty global to prevent yourself from getting to that state. It is a 1 minute cooldown, so I've had much more success using it early and often than just waiting to use it like I do in TBC.
Mm-hmm. Just like whenever you can, and you're gonna have uptime on it.
Yeah, so it might be different later in the game, because right now there's not a lot of things that can kill you. So you might have to use Shamanistic Rage defensively, because it does have that dual use where it does reduce the damage that you take. But generally speaking, I always use it for mana purposes now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess like sorry.
The one tip I was going to throw out there is I like encouraging new shaman players to be good about recalling their totems, because you get the mana back, like the partial mana refund from recalling your totems. And magma, for example, is really expensive on your mana.
Yeah.
And so if you're just in between packs, like that's just one like proactive way you can kind of like help your mana situation a little bit. It's not going to be like a huge steal, but it's just one tip I always throw out.
Yeah.
It's actually a really, really good tip.
For sure. Also, one small thing to note during your Sham Rage is if you are super low on mana and you've noticed you've had an unlucky Sham Rage and you're like not near full mana and Storm Strike's on cooldown, you can use Lava Lash over a different ability if you feel like it's necessary. Because that is, other than Storm Strike, that's the other ability that would like give you more mana, if that makes sense, right? Like you get more mana back during Sham Rage from a Lava Lash than you would from a Shock. The Shock's going to do more damage, but if you're going to be for a minute because you didn't have a good Sham Rage, then it's probably better to use that Lava Lash.
Yeah.
Definitely a DPS increase to have mana.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually like, that's going to be like one of the other nuances on top of like syncing your weapons and lightning bolt weaving. And now we're talking about all the complex things, but like realistically, like uptime in general and mana management, especially in early forms of gear where you don't have nearly as much like intellect as you might have later, is just such a large difference between like the top players and the general population. The general popular.
That's a really good point about uptime, because like that's what I've seen. Like if you're sticking with your tank during Nax, like you have to be in range to drop your totems, right? To be able to get damage out of Fire Nova. It's not like you're a Boomkin or a Warlock. You could just be sitting at range. Like I usually play on top of my tank, where like if he moves forward, I move forward. Essentially, just be his shadow.
Yeah. That was always like in OG Nax, that was the complete difference. That mana and like timing your CDs was the huge difference between like anyone that wanted to get like rank 1 on any class, especially a melee class, and anyone else. It was like, yeah, I have like 98.7% uptime through this raid. You have 92. I did like 600 more DPS than you. Like it makes sense. So if anyone's trying to min max, just stay with your tank. Stay with your tank,
especially with the threat being not nearly as big of an issue. Like in TBC, if you were a shout out to your tank, for the most part, you'll be fine. But there's going to be times where tank, parry mangle, Storm Strike crits, Wind Fury crits, like you're dead, right? In Wrath, that's at least in T7, not an issue pretty much. So yeah, I would agree with the staying behind your tank thing for sure. Close behind him.
Well, now we've got. I'm actually surprised we haven't like asked the question more earlier, and it's here. But I'm curious, and everyone's gonna want to know, what is your optimal rotation and your optimal AoE rotation? So like,
oh god,
this is the fun part of the class, right? The most fun part of playing a shaman.
Well, do you have a shaman, right? Can you get on it? Do it.
Yeah.
On the beta or something.
Sarthe Sham. Who wants to start? Let's go.
Some say that when Ouro pops heroism, he lets his man bun down.
It's good.
I am throwing these tentative prio lists for like a rotation, single target, multi-target in the group chat if you want to like somehow put those up on stream. I'm not sure if there's like a good way or not.
Oh, he's gonna do it.
Oh, I'm gonna figure out
You
a
have
way.
spell replay or something? Yeah, he's gonna do it.
There's like a bunch of like obviously there's a bunch of things you can throw in it. Like I don't believe I threw like so I don't have like Fire Ellie in this priority list just because it's I mean like obviously you're gonna prio using Fire Ellie when you have the biggest snapshot while also getting it off early enough in the fight where you're gonna get a lot of usage on it.
Yeah.
Wolves obviously you're 95 times out of 100 you're pretty much going to be casting running in and then lusting on pull. But I guess my priority list for single target is the number one. Again, I don't know how you prio this in like a ability list, but mana upkeep and Sham Rage. We already kind of talked about it. Ideally during a free global before your
Yeah.
I have Storm Strike if no debuff as the number one ability, single target. Trying to use if you use like Lightning Bolt with no Storm Strike debuff, that's a 28% weaker Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning. At least for Chain Lightning, the first, chain of it. But after that, I have a 5 Maelstrom Weapon stack Lightning Bolt. Then after that, this is I believe somebody commented like they don't have Storm Strike that high in prio just solely for damage. I have Storm Strike for damage right below 5 Maelstrom Weapon stack Lightning Bolt. It's tough to say. This is kind of a gray area where I'm not too sure. I Flame Shock is also really good. I probably let's say like
this up on a
Storm Strike has like 1 second on its cooldown and Flame Shock has like half a second. I'm probably just casting the one that comes off cooldown first, right? It's not like that big of a disparity where like I'd hold off a Flame Shock if that makes sense, just to be able to cast Storm Strike as soon as possible. Then after that I have Lightning Bolt Weave. You could honestly potentially even throw that above Flame Shock and Storm Strike. It's just you might get into a territory where you really obviously don't want to mess up Lightning Bolt Weaving, and you also don't want to Lightning Bolt Weave when you don't have 4 Storm Strike debuffs on, or 0 on the target. You want at least 1. So then after that I've got Earth Shock, pretty standard. Then after that I've got a Refresh Fire Totem if no free global. Ideally, you have a free global in that 20 seconds, and also mana isn't a concern where you can kind of refresh Magma Totem without delaying, a 5 Maelstrom Weapon, Lightning Bolt, or a Storm Strike. If that, I've got Fire Nova. Single target, it's really not that good. So that's why it's down here. I've got Refresh Lightning Shield if free global. It's refreshing Lightning Shield is obviously important, but I personally, you should have free globals to never really let it drop first off, and then second off, I would rather cast Fire Nova than Refresh Lightning Shield. And then lastly, I have Lava Lash. Not that Lava Lash is bad, like we talked about, it's not awful, but it's not good either compared to this stuff. Ouro's list might look different. I don't know.
So my list is almost identical to yours, but I'm not sure if the sim agrees with this, but it just feels really bad to use Storm Strike above 5 Maelstrom stacks. I know it's just a priority list, and you should really never have Storm Strike off the target, but when you Storm Strike with 5 Maelstrom stacks, it's not like retail where you can get more than 5 stacks. Any Maelstrom procs would get wasted. So it just feels really, really bad. I know this is just, like I said, it's a priority list. You shouldn't have Storm Strike off the target ever. But yeah, that's the only thing that I probably would change, is always using 5 Maelstrom stacks first. But
never waste Maelstrom stacks.
Yeah.
Because Storm Strike, not every time, it's not crazy, but Storm Strike can pretty reliably on hit give you 2 stacks of Maelstrom Weapon. Not every time, but I feel like it's above 50% for me, just from Feels Crafty ness on it. It feels like it's pretty reliably giving you 2 stacks of Maelstrom Weapon a lot of the time.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I would say 2 is probably average. If you had to pick one whole number, yeah, it'd probably be 2. If you're weaving, I feel like that's a little bit less of a concern. If you're not weaving, it's obviously a little bit more of a concern. I just, at the end of the day, it kind of depends, right? if you're running to your target and you have 5 Maelstrom up in stacks and you're still not within melee range, you may as well
Throw a
throw out
lightning
that
bolt.
chain lightning or that lightning
Yeah.
bolt, right? But
Oh yeah, absolutely.
if-
Yeah.
if you're on top of the target, yeah, it's 28% damage loss. So like I would agree in that it's pretty small, and I would not like if somebody did prioritize how Ouro's prioritizing it, I would not be
Mhm.
like that's a huge flaw in your gameplay. That's something you need to change. It's
Mhm.
more so just making sure that you're weaving effectively without clipping, pressing buttons. It's really just kind of that, and then obviously not going
Someone's asking, and I'm just confirming. Lightning bolt over chain lightning on single target every
Yes.
time. Mhm.
Yep. Every time.
And then new people asking about weaving. We talked about it earlier, but it's essentially using your maelstrom stacks early, and not clipping like casting lightning bolt, and not clipping any of your like GCDs or your melee swings. We'll have a timer on this on YouTube, so you can go back and go through that whole section. I personally don't even have a melee swing timer on my week. We're currently on the beta, and that's because I didn't even know this was a technology. Yeah.
What do you drop? So random, but I would like to know this. What are you dropping if your mana is if you see yourself having mana issues, kind of like as an Ellie, I would just stop chain lightning, right? Because mana. Is there something that there's like I assume if it's Prio, Lava Lash is last, but is there something that you purposely would drop off, like Fire Nova on single target? Single target, obviously. Single target. Would you not Fire Nova because it's healthy on mana?
I feel like
to mind is chain lightning.
Wait, you would stop using chain lightning, or what do you?
Yeah, I would use lightning bolt instead for chain lightning's a ton of mana versus lightning bolt, so that's probably the first thing that I drop out.
But you wouldn't use it on single target anyways, right?
So even if there's 2 mobs, like if there's 2 mobs or whatever, like I would just drop it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably drop Lightning Shield at your earliest convenience and switch to Water Shield to be something I would do. That might not be a popular take, but that's how I feel. Also on single target for sure. You should probably in your mind kind of set like a soft amount depending on, again, when Shaman Rage is coming off cooldown, other variables as well. Do you have points in Imp Storm Strike? There should be probably a point in your mana bar where you say, all right, I'm done casting Fire Nova on single target. Because if you've got 35 seconds left on Shaman Rage and you're at 1.5k mana, you should not cast that Fire Nova.
Fire Nova is expensive.
Yeah, it's very
that's
expensive.
why I
900
asked,
mana, yeah. Those would probably be the things I'd stop. Yeah.
If you're really, really, really desperate, you could. But like if you are like you don't have Shamanistic Rage coming up anytime soon, and your only best bet for getting mana back is like hitting Storm Strike, and you're like Lava Lash, you could potentially just do like a Searing Totem for single target instead of Magma, because Searing is like way less mana than Magma Totem. Magma Totem is pretty expensive. This is like a big DPS loss for you, but Searing Totem works. You can do Searing Totem.
Yeah, I think to drop Searing and like in a single target case, you would have to have made many misplays, which is possible. I've done this before too. You will have to have made many misplays to get.
I don't even have it on my bars.
However, I mean, I'm not trying to like be mean. Like I've definitely done that on beta too. So
For
we
sure.
all got to start somewhere. So
Does Storm Strike reset your weapon swing?
No.
no.
Oh, maybe I copied this before because I was like, where's Flame Shock? Oh, there it is. Okay, I was like, where's your Flame Shock dot upkeep on here? And I was like, am I wrong in thinking you need to do that? So it's right there below Storm Strike. On
Your
Prime.
I
pre-pot
really
is
agree.
pre-pot is Wild Magic.
If you have your fire elemental. If not, you would haste, right?
And do you have a
Yep.
precast, or do you not even worry about precast because you're running in?
I usually don't precast, no.
I think it depends. Like, it depends on the fight. But if you can precast, there's no reason not to, for sure. I mean, right.
How's your guys' single target threat? Do you guys ever see like you're having a little bit of issues with it? Like I know wind shear, you guys didn't talk about it much, but I know it reduces threat a little bit. Do you guys ever have to worry about trying to wind shear out for threat reduction, or do you guys even have threat issues on single target?
So the only time I've ever had threat issues was when I was getting Tricks of the Trade and the rogue was not canceling Tricks threat. That was the only time I've ever had problems. But a lot of the rogues on the beta I've noticed did not cancel the threat, so I was always like eating their threat, and that's when I had threat problems. But besides that, I never had issues with it.
I've had threat issues on P server, but never once on beta, and it might not be an issue until later gear, but I've definitely had some weird thread issues that I could talk about, but it's not worth the time.
Yeah, I could
Well,
see.
yeah, patchwork is the
more-
scary fight, right? For every melee though, that fight sucks for melee right now.
Why? You can't just
Everyone's
dip
gonna
in.
die. You're gonna get healed.
There goes your mana.
Yeah,
goes your
there
heal,
goes your
just not
mana.
heal.
You
Oh,
also do
yeah.
less damage
Yeah, the
if
holy
you have the
tally.
dot right at the time. Yeah, you're getting that's a scary fight. That's like the one scary fight right now where it's like just like hold off, right? Like I think that's the one fight where like week 1, a ton of people are gonna die.
Yeah, and I guess like one thing about the dipping, like regardless of our mana pool, it's really hard for other melee to dip just because like people talk about the Holy Paladin splash heal. If like Judge Lights on the boss, that's obviously not great either. But yeah, we have a mana pool, so when we dip, we obviously lose all that mana. It's not always gonna make us go but yeah, dipping is much more annoying on Enhance than any other melee, and so.
And I feel like the only time that there's an issue is if things go south. Like, you should never have to really dip, right? Like, that's only an issue if a tank dies, right? So,
Mhm.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then for AoE rotation, what abilities take up, without even just looking at it, what abilities take up more of the priority list? Fire Nova jumps to your highest priority ability, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you still would Storm Strike over. Would you guys all agree with Storm Striking over a 5 Maelstrom weapon Chain Lightning?
No, never. Definitely dump your Chain Lightning and then your Storm Striking like as soon as you can, because your Storm Strike's gonna, help you get your Maelstrom weapon stacks back up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could honestly depend on the trash pack. It's like tough for me to explain, I guess. Like I on the Prio list, I probably should just put 5 Maelstrom weapons, stack Chain Lightning over Storm Strike. But I think there is a scenario where you would Storm Strike over a 5 Maelstrom weapon, stack Chain Lightning, depending on how long the pack's gonna live.
Is Chain Lightning just a weak ability and I never noticed? I didn't look at it through logs and like try to see how much damage you get like per AoE fight, right? Is it relatively weak? Because you said it would be one thing if it was just like 2 targets, the first thing you would drop, right, Ouro? So
yeah, so that was just the first thing that came to mind, right? But it isn't weak. It's just that it's a lot of mana. So like if you're just like I would just look to Lightning Bolt instead.
And a lot of people are asking about Flame Cap. I know you are you're using them, Ouro, because you're min-maxing on the beta. But the advantages, disadvantages, should people stack Flame Cap? Yes, no, maybe so.
So right now, if you haven't saved up Flame Caps, they're extremely expensive.
You're screwed, right?
Yeah, I have thousands of them already saved before like they've gone up in price, and they're busted, right? They don't take a potion cooldown. All it takes is your health stone. So on trash, it's exceptionally good. It's like, is it 70 fire damage over the course of a minute? It's really good. It's high value
80.
on AoE. It's 80? Yeah, so it's exceptionally good. Yeah, and they're 10 to 15 gold. That's if I had to buy it now, I probably wouldn't, to be fair. But
They're not going to get better. They started off pretty cheap, and then Warlocks needed them, and now Fire Mages needed them, and now all the Shamans need. It's just going to keep going. They're going to. Obviously, they'll hit a point where they're not going to keep going
for
up.
everyone.
Oh, not a little. It's a lot, because remember you're stacking them with all your cooldowns, your potions, and shit. So it makes that worth even more, right? So they're pretty fucking big.
Hello, Hunters.
Yeah, Hunters too. Yep, Hunters. I have like 3,000, and I'm not. And you need more than that. And there's no easy. You can farm them if you want, but I don't know if that's worth. I mean, they're just. I don't know. They're kind of crazy how expensive they're getting. We didn't help.
Biss
They're not
gold
harder to
farm
farm.
in the game. Where the bot's at. Flame cap.
They're not like they're hard to farm. You just fly around saying and get them. But I mean, I'm on Benediction. There's already people doing it, right? Wherever you guys are, you're gonna see people doing it. So as long as you beat them, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Enhance's used flame caps in TBC, to be honest. I mean, obviously not every boss or whatever, but like Terran Gorfiend, there's no reason not to use a flame cap. You know what I mean? Like situations where you know you're not going to need Healthstone. It's obviously much smaller in TBC than Wrath of a DPS increase, but the sim still had it, and the TBC sim still had it in TBC as like a 16-ish DPS increase. In
Mhm.
Wrath, it's significantly more than that, like more than double that for sure. So yeah, flame caps are really good.
And definitely on trash, like that damage seems crazy on any sort of cleave situation. That's going to be an expensive one for people that are min-maxing, I gotta say.
Real expensive, and you use them for raid. And if you're like us and you want to use them in heroics and everywhere else, it's gonna get real. I'm in the open world PvPing, trying. Oh no, I'm popping it. You know what I mean? So they're gonna get real expensive. Stock up.
Gotta do those GDKPs.
Yeah.
Yep, stock up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we're past rotation. Everyone knows how to be a pro. Although you guys have to also go to the earlier section if you want to know how to weave, and also if you want to know how to snapshot. You gotta. Luckily, there's timestamps in the description. Easy clap. Leveling. You already talked about leveling spec. We already linked the leveling spec. Is there anything everyone should know about leveling? I had more to say, and then I was like, I'm just gonna let you guys talk about it because I was like, oh. Let's start with you, Jroo. Anything anyone should know about leveling? What should they focus on? And yeah,
I kind of have a really lame leveling opinion. My opinion is if you only have a set certain amount of hours you can put into WoW and trying to get better at the game, or just playing the game, I'm not putting those hours into leveling. I'm just gonna level the best I can without putting prep in, and that's what it is. And then I'm gonna focus on, like I've been focusing on the beta, just like Ouro. I've been focusing on looking at logs, trying to see like how I can get better at the game, right? Like if I only have 20 hours a week to put into WoW or whatever, I'm not putting any of that into like quest prep. That's just me personally. Like if I'm not going to go for like a realm first server, whatever, right? Like to me, it's kind of like whatever, right? Like I just play the game, hit 80, and then go from there. But
Ouro, how do you feel
with
about leveling?
With how they changed it, so there's 10 days between release and Nax. There's definitely like no reason, in my opinion, besides maybe if you're trying to get more badges, to like go super, super hard. I was with my guild in a group that was supposed to be trying to get like first 80s, and then I got switched to another one, and then my desire to do like quest prep went down drastically. So like now I've like half done. So yeah, it's not something that I prioritize at all. But with regards to like specs, like if you want to do quests, go Feral Spirit in my opinion. But if you're in like a try-hard group, I want to say Fire Nova build is like broken. It's too good not to use.
Yeah, it seems like it's impossible to run a dungeon group build without, or dungeon group spam without that Fire Nova build. Rugs, are you same opinion?
Yeah, I mean, if you're questing, you should probably grab as well the improved Ghost Wolf talent. It's probably worth just for moving from quest to quest. I also like just for mana reasons and assuming you're not max level, if you are getting wolves, like Ouro said, you're not going to have improved Fire Nova. So spend the extra talent point. You can just respec later on getting 2 out of 2 improved Storm Strike, help your mana out a little bit, and get the minor glyph for your Ghost Wolf as well to regenerate health. So you just go like Ghost Wolf as often as you can, just helping regenerate
and
there.
Sprint. Yeah.
But minor stuff, really minor stuff.
Yeah. And again, there other than getting some of your tier pieces, tier 6, there wasn't like much to focus on, at least for now, to grab beforehand to focus on to help you out with leveling too much, right?
Right.
All right. Lastly, we're getting there though, guys. We're fucking deep in Shaman. I'm loving Shaman, by the way.
This is my favorite one. This is my favorite melee one we've done so far. Yeah.
I think the Simonized one is really good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Your guys aren't my favorite.
If anyone hasn't seen that, go watch it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And
The girl one was legendary.
Yeah.
Flower weaving. Wrath weaving, wrath shifting, and
Barrel
obviously
was
bear
some-
weaving. Yeah. Oh my god. Races for Shaman. I guess this is really easy, right? Like for Alliance, you only have one choice, and for Horde, is there Abyss race? Is it defined? Or yes, no, Schmork.
Orc for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think Troll's
Wha-
fairly close. Like, if you want to go Troll, just go Troll. I would not go Tauren. But even if you did go Tauren, keep in mind that, like, a BM Hunter buff in TBC is probably more damage, 3%, than the difference between Tauren and Orc. Or it's at least close, right? So it's like, you can still parse a 100 with a 1 hunter
3%'s
double
pretty
warrior group, you
big.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's huge. No, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, unless you're like, if you're like, oh, like I'm semi-hardcore, I really don't want to re-roll, I would not. Is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. But it's yeah. So
Orc is best, and then Troll, and then Tauren.
And the reason for Orc is because of the expertise component. Your feral spirits get more damage because of the pet. And also on top of that, mental quickness with Blood Fury is just insane. It's 322 AP and then 260 spell power. It's kind
Wow.
of cracked. Kind of
Yeah.
cracked. It's like it's its own trinket, right? So
Yeah, Blood Fury is so strong, but the haste from being a troll not nearly as big.
It's great, but there's just way too much going in the favor of Orc. And plus, like,
Mhm.
every single phase, it's not like there's one particular phase where, like, oh, like, I'm not using a fist or axe weapon right now. No, every single phase of the expansion you are.
So you always have that expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
much.
All right, Blizzard, release your race change, please. So that's pretty simple. I like that there's like a definitive. It's funny because a lot of classes don't have a definitive, but Shaman and Paladin are like the two for one rate or for one faction. It's like, well, you don't have any choice, right? So there's no like thought process you even need to put into it. You're like a Draenei or a Blood Elf for the respectives. And then like there's one, it's like it's just Orc, dude. Your feral spirits get buffed, and that trinket proc from Blood Fury is so nice. And that's got to be so nice on overall. You can use it more often than any of the other ones, right? It's a 2-minute CD, so it's up, and you can actually use it on trash instead of trying to save it directly for bosses. And you can use it with your snapshot, which is
I guess you could
You don't-
troll with your Healhance. That's probably it.
You heard it here, dude. He said it. He said it. Where's the
It's
bingo
about that
card?
time.
It's about that time.
Heal hands. Give it to me. Is it good? Is it bad? Should we even? Do you want to talk about it, Rex? Do you want to mention it?
Yeah, there's no
It's-
other topics left. You might as well.
It's wonderful for dungeons, and all it is Enhance. It's just Enhance. It really is. All I did was change some gear around and messed around with a few different things. Sure, the spec looks a little different, but it's basically the exact same thing as Enhance. Yeah, it's totally good. It's totally doable. Just don't be bad at the video game. Make sure that you keep your friends alive.
In raid, you think?
In raid, it's terrible. No way.
So it's just for dungeons.
Only for dungeons. I did it in raid on beta. It felt horrible. I'm sure there's gonna be a few guys out there who probably saw the video and thought, this is fun, I'm gonna try it in a raid. And I'm sure they can have some fun with it, maybe in a 10-man where they're getting like hard carried by another healer who's doing like all the heavy lifting. They can like pretend like they're helping. But it's really not like a raid thing. It's only
Yeah.
meant to help you clear dungeons faster.
Yeah, you just need Valnir. That's it.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like during pre-patch, there were times we had no healers around, and my guild's like, we need something to heal. Like the tanks are taking no damage at all, and I'm essentially DPSing the entire time and like throwing out a chain heal like once
Oh,
every
so
20
you're a
seconds.
Healhance partaker? You're a
Practicality,
Healhance
man.
partaker?
Practicality.
You like it?
Yeah.
Is it fun?
I mean, I got my goals done, right? So I was able to do the heroic and get out of there,
you
and
go.
didn't have to
Yeah.
wait for a healer. So
That's actually nice, like the flexibility, the ability to just be like, yeah, you're not stressed about getting a healer. Heroics are really simple. Tanks don't take a lot of damage, and you can just go in and heal it. Like, you don't need to be like upset about like the stress to find a healer, which can absolutely be a thing.
That's exactly what bothered me on the Rhett podcast that I was listening to, is y'all were talking about Rhett Holy or doing like the Rhett stuff about like, you know, healing as a Rhett in a dungeon, and all of you agreed like, oh yeah, it's not a thing, it's not worth it, it's not good.
What?
Like, I think you just agreed because you were being nice to your guests, but your guests did not think that Rhett Holy or healing as Rhett in a dungeon was a thing that should be done, and they were hard against it. It's like, dude, what does it matter? Like, tanks aren't taking damage. Like, you can easily just go in there and like, yeah, call yourself a healer, assign yourself that role, but just do damage. Like, don't take a full-on healer if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like forming groups. Let's be realistic. The group finder in Wrath is not like that dope. So like finding a healer is gonna be a stress for a lot of people, realistically, right? It's not easy to always find a healer. Sometimes you're gonna be like fighting forever, and it's the same thing with the tank. But I think we're gonna have a lot more tanks than healers for some reason. It just seems that way. So like if you can, why not, right? Like it's simple to do.
Exactly.
Especially later down the line when there's more gear and you're trying to do heroics on ults, right? There's going to be less healers, and it's just a practicality thing. Like, I don't like healing. I played it in original vanilla, and I hate it now. But, like, if I gotta do it, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just quickly to note, there's no, like, Shaman class Discord guy here. Not that me and Ouro, like, don't go in the Shaman class Discord, but, like, you know, the top guys or whatever. This is what they have for their like Healhance build. I just thought I'd give that like a quick shout out. I don't know if I would not personally recommend that.
Wait,
not that it's
what?
bad. Like if you don't have the gear, then maybe, but like I personally don't think that's worth it at all. Right? I think and from beta experience, when I've done Healhance and not been quite good at it, you can easily heal heroics with, as long as you don't have like complete dog gear. That's their recommended build. That's a very safe build. And
I think Rugs might have a little bit of a better build than that.
Yeah, Rugs. Look at Rugs' face.
That's crazy. I had no idea any more development was happening on the Healhance front.
Because they were just flaming you the entire time for it.
I don't like this.
It's funny that they had one.
Yeah, I don't like this spec at all. I agree with Jroo. I feel like this is way too safe. Like the whole point of the build is to go faster, go fast, and like oh god.
I would probably just go. I would probably just go Resto before I went this build. Not that like I don't think the build's awful. I just don't like value that middle ground. I would either just go the spec that Rugs has in his YouTube video, which is essentially just Enhance but with a few points thrown in Resto, or I would just go Resto. And that's that.
Yeah. They're missing out on Feral Spirits and practicality of like actually like going through a dungeon like really, really quickly, which is again the whole point. Like the Spirit Walk from Spirit Wolves is huge. It's not only like helping you move through the dungeon faster, but it keeps uptime, and you need to have uptime on all these like trash mobs. Otherwise, you're not going to get the Maelstrom stacks up to heal to actually do your job, and you're going to go And so like that's a huge part is like having Spirit Wolves. To me, I mean the build that they have is there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just overly safe.
So Healhances. Figure it out, dude. This is deep. This is deep, and you're losing a lot of damage. But I obviously have no real opinion because I'm not the Enhanced boys. So it's good to know that you guys both feel the same ish. Ouro's biting his lips. He's like, I'm not saying it.
I mean, like I said, it's practicality. Like I'm not an expert. I did it once on Prepatch, so I didn't even play it at 80. So.
All right, then I will link this heal. I'll link Rugs Healhance video right there.
Shout out Big Cannon in the chat. Big Brain Enhance, who I was trying to get on, but I didn't give him early enough notice. Actual big TCer right there. Shout out.
Well, leaving actually, Healhance out.
He is Nijanan has a really good he put out like a really good FAQ in the Shaman Discord. Like if I was gonna look for one place for really good info without having to like delve super deep, I would go to the Nijanan FAQ in the Shaman Discord, and I would also go into Ouro's Discord. I know we kind of talked about that earlier, but I figured I'd say that again for people who are new here.
Yeah, those are the places to grab all of your information and theory crafting. Let's go. I love that, dude. It's honestly, this class seems so fun. I'm really glad that there's all of this theory crafting going into it. The whole weaving thing is amazing. Is there any sort of gold farms that you can do as an enhanced shaman? Anything that like they would excel at more than anyone else? I'll take the silence.
Yeah, so when it comes to that, at least what my plans are for gold is just have a GDKP character. Let's be real, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's like that's literally always my way of farming gold is like have a GDKP character.
And that's a really good point. I mean, like, to be fair, they are really great for GDKPs because, like Jroo said at the top of the call, like, they don't need to buy greatness, so they are just in general really affordable alts. And so you're able to go in and purchase a lot of gear that like not many people are bidding on to begin with because a lot of it's going to be male, for example. And like Wraith Strike, like no one wants. That's like your straight up Bis phase 1 and lasts you a long time through World War II. Like, just there are obviously going to be some pieces like Dying Curse. Yeah, you're going to have to pay a lot for Dying Curse. And there's going to be other items similar to Dying Curse eventually, but it's a pretty affordable alt.
There's a lot of blue bars lying around too that are not getting played because of the 6 shaman meta. I know plenty of people who have just level 70 shamans just lying around now, so
that would be the one like hesitation I'd have about like dedicating myself to having as Enhance as my GDKP alt is that I'm assuming a lot of people are going to have shamans as alts. Not that I still think it is a really good GDKP alt. It's just I don't think there is like a GDKP alt that guarantees you a spot in a GDKP like there was in Shaman and TBC. Not that that's related to the podcast, but I just threw it out there. So
it's probably gonna be like, I want to say the most. What I'm just curious what you guys think. Like the most wanted class in a GDKP, like Death Knight, obviously super easy to stack. There's going to be a bajillion of them though. So like, will you get a spot? Not as easy. Warlock always been stackable. Also going to be a lot of them, but maybe not as much. That might be. And then like you could also stack Rogue pretty easily. What do you guys think is like the class that would make it easiest to get into a GDKP? And so chat, what do you guys think? Yeah, I see a couple of combat rogues. Yeah.
In Nax, the content is extremely easy, but later in the game, I feel like people are going to just bring good players regardless of what class they are. Like, so if you're a DK player that's just really, really good at the game, you're going to get brought over people who really aren't. So I think the biggest thing with GDKPs is being good at the class, and on top of that, having connections. Like, having connections with a GDKP runner is probably the biggest thing. Like, when you go to GDKP, just be a good person, and you're going to get re-invited, so...
Yeah, I always think about that. Like people always ask me how I run like 9 GDKPs a week, but like my guild master literally he runs like 13 or 14 or something, 17. I think it's 17 now. So it's like if you just know the right people, you're always gonna be invited. Like you can always get that spot. And starting out, it's never that way, and you kind of like have to earn your spot and then just like be reliable, right? You always have to like show like I have 10,000 gold or whatever. I don't buy anything, dude. I'm the cheapest. It's the best gold farm in the game, though. There's nothing like it other than like the Rogue Karazhan farm is pretty nice, but yeah.
I think boomkins are good for GDKPs too. They're not super try hard. Like they're very laid back and you're blasting, and they're
relatively easy to blast on as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a similar vein to Rogue like. Rogue single target rotation, you're just like, this is not, I'm not worried about like stressing about like any brain power right now, right? Well, is Ellie Shaman? I don't know, someone says Ellie Shaman, I don't know.
Hey, talk about it. I mean, that's the next episode. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, then no world would you bring, I don't think you'd bring an Ellie over Enhance. There's no reason to. I mean, if you don't have a demo lock, yeah, but who's not going to have a demo lock, right?
Yeah, a demo lock is like standard, right? It's necessary.
Yeah. So if you have a demo, why would you bring an Ellie over an Enhance, you know? Even more so, I mean, I guess you could bring one over Resto, but I don't even know if you would do that. I feel like Ellie would be the last of the 3 to bring.
Yeah.
Speculation.
Oh, I love this part of the stream in the
background. Ellie is a lot of fun.
Ouro gets donated $50 in the middle of the poll for Thaddeus.
And then misses the jump.
No, I missed.
No
Did
shot.
you miss the jump, dude? Yeah, nobody misses the jump.
I've never missed the jump my entire life. Okay, I'll have you know.
Me neither. Me neither, dude. Okay, it's never happened. Man.
Don't worry, you guys will have rocket boots or nitro boots on, so you won't do it when the real game's out. It'll hold your hand for you.
Imagine. Fucking imagine. God, I'm never gonna live this down, man.
You really won't. It doesn't help that you die. You fell twice in the same fucking.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's good to know.
I don't know what you're talking about. I wanted to quit the game.
Yo,
I
if you
literally
ever miss
wanted
that
to
again,
quit the game.
Holy shit! It's good. You're gonna miss it again for some reason. I don't know what's
No,
gonna happen.
I'm
You're gonna have
not,
like,
dude.
no, bro.
I was in max speed runs forever. This was the only time it's ever happened, and it happened twice. I was a fucking bot, dude. Okay, cancel Sarthe. All right, God.
You're gonna like use boots going to the fight, and then you'll start the fight, the first phase, and you'll like forget or something and misjump it. And I can't wait. It's gonna be so fun.
I'm gonna be yeah. I'm literally gonna be like doing a GDKP on like some random class and like talking to chat and like looking over this way, and then it's gonna fucking happen. I'm just gonna cry, man. I'm gonna cry. Well, anyways, is there anything else you guys want to touch? Did we miss anything for Enhanced Shaman? This is really in depth, and I love it. You guys are fucking absolutely a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so hyped to have you on, because like we've just started playing together now that we're playing together on the beta and stuff, and that's been like super fun. But I think you guys are all amazing, you know. So, is there anything we missed? If not, where can people find you all and find your stuff, your content, and closing opinions? Boom, Jroo, go first, because you're up top. You're there.
I don't know what I would call this hairstyle, by the way. Get milk. I've gotten a couple of hairline comments. Apparently, I don't know. My hairline's fine to me, but you know, I guess the viewers have to decide. Anyways, though, closing comments. My twitch.tv/JrooXD is where you can find me. I also have a Discord. I guess I can like, it's not really like anything special, but if you wanted to like join it and like ask me something, then like, you know, that would probably be the place to go, and you can DM me or ask me something on one of the channels in there. Yeah. Other than that, you know, I'll be pumping in progress. Like I said earlier, excited for it.
Will Jroo get world fastest, world first Naxxramas? Oh, the silence tells it all. The silence tells it all, guys. He'll never get it.
You know, it's whatever, you know, I'll do whatever is best for the guild, you know.
And will you beat Chairlock? Ooh.
No. Chairlock is just the, you know, Chairlock's the best chair I've ever played with, so.
All right. Rugs, my boy, my man. Tell the people where they can find you. Any closing statements?
Yo, closing statements. Just want to say, like, if you want to play Melee, and the whole point of playing Wrath for you is just to have the most amount of fun in Raid, just playing Enhance. They are just easy plug and play, high skill ceiling. You're going to love it. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/RUGSZ. I'm Rugs on YouTube as well. I also have a Discord, and yeah, I'm super excited. I play in a guild called Fusion with Crix and Sarthe and a bunch of homies, and yeah, mostly maining Feral and DK, but also will be playing Enhance.
Yes.
I just want to say to make sure you check out the Enhance Discord and your one-stop shop for everything Enhance related, as well as Ouro's Discord, where everybody keeps redirecting for more Enhance stuff. So I assume that's an amazing place for more Enhance stuff. I don't know about, there's another Enhance Discord, but I don't know if it's like chat enhancement or something. I don't really know much about
it. There's a chat enhancement Discord.
Yeah,
I haven't
really know about that one.
I think I ended up leaving it just because it like the activity. I think it kind of like you know, the activities died down a significant amount since whenever it was first made. But
yeah, the Enhance channel and the other one seems like they know what they're talking about for the most part. Handful of them, so that's a good place to check it out. Or just bug Ouro on his stream. He streams every day, I assume. And Jroo, get it.
Will this survive this for Enhance? Wait, Ouro
coming up. Oh, go ahead.
Ouro, sorry for interrupting you, Crix, but Ouro, my boy, finally have you on the podcast. Love you, dog. We've been playing a lot we did play a lot on the beta. Now, obviously, not so much. But closing arguments. Statements. My girlfriend's a lawyer, and I've been like having those chats after work with her after stream right now, and like she's been like drilling in like law talk to me right now.
You're so cute.
Oh my god. But yeah, any closing statements? What are your last thoughts? Anything you else have to say for Enhance, and where can the people find you?
Closing statements, just gotta say love you all. Thank you for bringing us on here to talk about enhancement. I think there was a lot of misconceptions about the class. There's a lot of information that was just misinformation, if you ask me. So I'm very happy that you brought us on. In terms of where you can find me, twitch.tv/justouro. Here's my Discord. Have a guide there for everything enhancement. But yeah, love you guys. Thanks for having us.
So all we have left is I would like to do Ellie next and then Hunter. I'm gonna reach out to find some Ellie people. It's actually kind of hard to find elemental big brains because I think nobody's playing the fucking class.
About I have a Hunter. I'll text.
Yeah, well, it's Veramos and Veramos. Well, you're the Hunter guy, so you can pick whoever. But I know Veramos is gonna be on there. If you need if you need another one, then go with him. Nibs, yeah, I've got a list of a couple Ellies that haven't come. So I want to do Ellie next, and then Hunter, and then Warlock, and then Warrior, and then Tank deep dives, and healer deep dives. The Tank and healer deep dives will be a tank. I'm gonna grab like a bear, blood DK. You get it, all 4 tanks, and then I'll have separate. I think we're gonna do a separate episode with them as well. I want the healing. The tank deep dives and the healer deep dives are a big deal, and they'll be longer. But I want to make sure all the information is out for each of the classes, and I don't want it to be like you grab the 4 tanks and we have a 3-hour episode, a 4-hour episode about 3 of the tanks, but then like 1 tank didn't talk that much, and I don't want that to happen. So if that doesn't go the way I want, then we'll have just a solid episode of just blood DKs, and just prop pallies and so on. Same with the healers, because we purposely left them last because the majority of the community plays DPS classes. That's why we went DPS first.
Yeah, and it's just so fun. I'm a shill. I'm like, DPS classes are so sick, dude.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's not hard to find hunters, big brains. It's not hard to find warlock people. The warrior one, I've reached out to a couple people, and then the alley one as well. And then any kind of episodes where we get a lot of conflicting information or like, more or less complaints about it, I want to do something else again, like another shorter one on it, right? So far we haven't got too many. We had a couple DK ones, but I think that doesn't matter. The information's out there. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't care about hurting people's feelings about being on here. I don't care. We just want the information out there, the proper information. So far, it feels like we haven't got too many complaints about the information.
Yeah. Thank you guys all for watching. Thank you guys for being here on the show with us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. Thanks for sharing your fucking wealth of knowledge with the world. I'm going to have so much more practice to do with Enhance, and this is so hype. Let's go. We will upload this to YouTube, and we'll send it all to you guys.
Tomorrow, 8 p.m. We'll go live with it.
8
p.m. Pacific, so 11 p.m. Eastern.